All right, we're live. Okay, so let me just get lined up here for my social media pages. Anyways, folks, just for those, I know it's going to take a couple minutes for people to start streaming in here, so that's why I usually, I don't know if you realize, but a lot of YouTube channels, such as my own, we're kind of put in the very bottom in terms of recommendations. So I almost have to proactively bring people into the channel by advertising myself on the rest of my social media platforms. They don't like to hear what people like myself have to say, apparently. I
Oh, what?
I practice wrong think.
Oh, yeah. That seems like their standard operating operandi for everything that they don't like.
Isn't that to me, which tells you that's the beautiful thing about ideas and truth is they're so powerful that even billion-dollar organizations are so scared of these ideas and these truths that they'll do anything humanly possible to try to squash or hide them in some way, which just tells me, and that's actually kind of what I'm going to go about with because I'm not sure if you're familiar with have you actually been following my channel for any amount of time, or is it
Oh
just
yeah, about a year.
okay? Because I don't know if you've actually heard of, because we were like I brought up the whole thing with, and when people hear this initially, even myself, when I first started going down the rabbit hole of learning all about government and what the hell does it all mean, anyways? What is all this stuff? Just like when I was a kid, I don't know what kind of background you come from, but I was raised in a religious family, and it was the same thing when I was a kid, constantly questioning and poking and prodding, like what the hell is all the, it just, I was an inquisitive, curious kid, right? And I kept hearing these ridiculous answers all the time. Oh, you just have to believe, man. No. You don't have to worry about trying to make sense of any of this stuff. You just need to believe. Right?
Yeah.
Now as an adult, almost 50-year-old man, I realized, oh shit, the government is the same goddamn concept, except the big difference I've noticed over the course of my life is, the big man in the sky, right, with that big beard and all that stuff. As much as I heard the threats, he will smite thee, right? So far, I've managed to escape unobscured, unharmed, right? It's like, whoa, so maybe this guy not necessarily so real after all. The problem with the government is it's built on the same abstract mysticism and fictional concepts that, like I say, if you test the theories out even remotely, so that it comes across as what, or test its consistency, you find out, oh, it's all bullshit. But the problem is, when someone, that believes in the state threatens me with something, damn, they have actual human beings that are full believers in the state that will follow out those orders. Now, in the past, that was something that us human beings were kind of susceptible to in terms of religiosity. So, if the king decreed that, well, God told me we must invade this country, or you must, sacrifice yourself to me because God said so. That was, like I say, that was pretty, but in the 20th century and now in the 21st century, you would think human beings have adapted and evolved enough that, okay, we've put all that shit in the past. We no longer, subject ourselves to a king or a monarch. But now, yeah, actually human beings do it every day, all the time. And when I talk with them, you can tell the minute, just like with a religious person, you can tell the minute someone is indoctrinated into a particular faith or cult is because the minute you challenge them on it, they get that cognitive dissonance thing where it's like, oh, whoa, you're challenging stuff here. Like, I don't like that. This is feeling uncomfortable. And trust me when I say I've gone through that, which is why I'm in a much better position today than I used to be years ago. But anyways, Tommy, I just wanted to mention to the folks, because I see there's a few people that have joined in. What's going on, Jake? Good evening. What's this? Katie Rhino? Hey, what's that? That must be someone related to you. Is it, Thomas?
Yeah.
Cool. Right on. That's awesome. Nice to see you in the stream, Katie Rhino, and GTO Mama's in the stream too. That's awesome. Anyway, so like I say, I just brought Tommy onto the stream. We had a little back and forth dialogue, friendly and all, and we were just going to talk about it. Was basically he was responded to my poll. The one in terms of Maxime Bernier put out the petition where he wants to ban Antifa. And I mean, I'm not a fan of Antifa. Obviously, anyone that knows me knows I'm not a fan of Antifa, but banning, like to me, it's the same thing. And I think you kind of brought that up, right, too, Thomas, is like, yeah, we're going to, like the liberals, we're going to ban guns, right? Oh, let's see how well that works out for you. Right? It's like, hey, can we start at the RCMP first? If this is going to happen, like, can we start there? Because that might actually help us a whole lot more in terms of actually being a little more safe and secure in our home. Sorry, go ahead, Thomas, man. I know I've been kind of railing on there, but
They want to ban certain levels of police They want to pull some police forces off the street because they think that less police brutality, less guns on the street, blah 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 blah. It's like, you guys, look, we've tried this. We've already tried this. There's just a lot of criminals.
Yeah, well, actually, let me just tell you though here, Thomas, because the difference you're going to get from someone like myself is that's the thing. And I get it. We're all used to hearing these idiots that are all referred to as experts, and they all seemingly have all these diplomas lining their walls, and they have all this, massive amount of education, although I'd say indoctrination. Like, I could point out a SEAL at the zoo, or I mean at Marineland, that can do a really awesome job at balancing that ball on his nose. But ask it, go fix you up a fucking sandwich and see how well it works then, right? So people that are enamored with statism, yes, they can talk from a particular position. But I get why people, and that's actually why I wanted to clarify my position and how it's talked about, because this actually stuff, the defund the police, just like vacate the state, libertarians, like, once, as per usual, we've been way out in front. Matter of fact, we're so far out in front of all these people that are trying to catch up now. Even looking in the rear view mirror is not working anymore. I literally got to put on the telescope or high power binoculars to look back just to even see, oh yeah, they're there. They're just almost at the very end of the horizon, but they're slowly, gradually trying to get caught up. But of course, we're always staying out in front. But what I say when I talk about defund the police is not to, that's the thing, because this is the part where it's getting misconstrued, no, the current establishment, the way it works is it's corrupt, and you're not going to change it. There's just no way that these institutions, because of the way they're just, first of all, the way they're funded, like, to me, first and foremost, which is why I definitely support the defunding, not banning, but defunding, because that is the only possible way that human beings actually have to withdraw their support, because government forces us. So basically, you have to get government to stop taking your money. Then, like, I'm all for police services, like libertarians, anarchists, voluntarists. We've been talking with it. And like I say, but what it is I want market-driven, competition-oriented people that are accountable. Just like, if I go have signed a contract with the bank or with Walmart or anywhere for some kind of, whether it's a 3-year terms of obligation for don't pay a time for a lifetime at the Brick or Leon's or something, right? But basically, I want defined rules in this contract rather than this false pretense that we've always heard basically since we were kids that, oh, it's a social contract. Meanwhile, I've never signed shit. It gets changed all the time. I got a mosquito rocking around my mic here, but this thing constantly changes all the time. And I never get any say. The only thing I get to do is once every few years is I can, if I want, pick a box. But then again, I only get to pick from whatever they're allowing me. I don't get to actually make genuine options or come up with my own. To me, what I would say is, in place where I am, yes, we definitely need people that are going to be those who protect and serve communities. But does it have to come through a government-derived monopoly of force or violence that we really can't hold to account, with the multiple layers and the redundant layers of bureaucracy, including the police unions? There's no way we can hold these people to account. So what I'm saying is, just like with Elon Musk and other ventures, cryptocurrencies, smart contracts that are built on blockchain technology, now I just want my money back from services that weren't properly rendered. But like I say, we'll find it. We libertarians, we're going to lead by showing and all we need is the leeway and the opportunity to do so. Is, yeah, I would perfectly set up, some kind of organization that would defend the public. You could set it up under a smart contract type system, start out in the local communities. And like I say, get all the people in the community, to agree or disagree to whether they want to support and fund these. And because you're going to have the voluntary choice to fund them, you also have the voluntary choice to withdraw your funding if they're not upholding their end of the contract in terms of doing the proper jobs or duties. So basically, I'm just going to give you a little touchdown on where I'm going with that. So what are you thinking so far on what I'm saying, Thomas?
Well, it's a good idea because, look, the community knows what they need anyway. You don't need a bureaucracy to feed your community with a bunch of stuff you don't need. This is the giant problem that we have right now. Is we have this production going in one direction, and there's a bunch of waste that comes off it, and we can't account for it anymore. We got to pay for it anyway. Like, if you look at the Queen's budget last year, the Queen's budget was short $4.8 billion, and they just signed off on it. They said, "Yeah, pay it." So they printed the money out of thin air and said, "Yeah, we have these expenses that we didn't anticipate throughout the year, so sorry, here, we got to pay it. I
Yeah.
mean, this is how they've been doing it for the last 40 years, 50 years at least. You know, probably
Yeah.
even longer. The original party in Canada was a liberal conservative party. So that is a political government running.
Yeah. Right. Well, like as we understand, well, that's the thing, that because these countries were set up to try to, you know, do new things, try things different, total different social constructs, you know, they're a little better than some of the you know, historical contexts or situations such as, you know, in Europe. But Canada, I think where Canada failed in terms of our comparison to the US is that absolute lack of a fully entrenched understanding in terms of your freedom of speech, and of course that even more, I would say, vitally important, actually just as important, I wouldn't say it gives supremacy to either one, tell you the truth, but is that Second Amendment. And that to me is a paramount importance in which, because to me it's very, if you can become, but because it's not cultural in Canada, it's going to be hard. It's going to be a long-term process. But you do have places in the US, like certain particular states and jurisdictions where, you know, I would even say in some parts of rural Canada, but we don't have the laws on our side, but you know, it's much easier. Like I even, when I drove truck and I talked to a lot of guys, and you know, I did quite a bit of drives or deliveries down in Texas, and Texas is one of those states where you actually can have open or concealed carry. So the beautiful thing of that, and the open, like, that's just weird. I find like some dude walking through Walmart with a fucking AR on his back, that just seems weird, right? But when you have even the concept or the premise of concealed carry, well, then even the little lady walking, you know, walking home at night, right? You don't know if she don't have a little snub nose 38 stuffed in that purse. You don't have a clue, right? So you have the ability, at least the pretense of the ability to defend yourself, which, you know, kind of does, it doesn't prevent all crimes from happening, but no, but criminals all make a calculated choice, which is why you usually see most of the time criminals are going to go towards people who are actively disarmed, like gun-free zones, or places where they recognize that, yeah, this is going to be easy prey. You know, if a typical thief had the option of the guy that's yeah, we know this guy's locked and loaded and he keeps them all around, stashed all around his property, or there's a neighbor, you know, 10 houses down that, you know, they're a vegan I don't know, environmentalist, and they're totally against guns. Like, gee, I wonder which house would probably be a better option to go rob, right? So it's, like I say, to me, it's about incentive at the end of the day. And the same with the defining of the police. I definitely believe in having police. Now, me personally, what I don't mean police in terms of a police force, but you need people who, like I say, are going to be those protectors of society, because societies need that. You're just going to need, people are going to be placed in susceptible or vulnerable situations where you're going to need somebody to either come to your aid or do an investigation subsequent to any incident. So I understand that. But like I say, the current paradigm that we're living in, and it's all over the Western world, it's not just in Canada. And I hate the fact that they bring the race up too, because that's bullshit. I'm so tired of it. Like, I've seen plenty enough white people, and I my heart goes out to Aboriginal people, black people, brown people, but my fellow white people, me, for fuck's sakes, I've been screwed over big time by cops, and they look just like me. So stop playing the race shit. It's people that have authoritarian tendencies, and that's the problem too with the police agencies today. Is they're so much different. They're militarized, right? They're given a completely different mindset. They kind of look to escalation rather than de-escalate. Even the name of them, they're always referred to nowadays as law enforcement. You know, when I was growing up, it was peace officers, or then subsequent to that, police officers. But at least with the term peace officer, well, it kind of gives the connotation of trying to keep the peace, which suggests you might be trying to, you know, de-escalate the situation. But today, like I say, the tactics, the gear, you know, the constant where their higher ups are basically intimidating, bullying them to make sure that they're, you know, filling up the coffers for government. So there's just, like I say, there's just wrong incentives. And I think people that actually function in those organizations, what I always say is, I don't think you can claim to be a good cop if you work for a corrupt organization, because I wouldn't work for it if I was a good person, right? But what I want to do is, I do recognize there are good people in Canada who want to be peace officers and keep the peace and do the right thing. The problem is they have no options. Just like if you're a doctor or a paramedic or a nurse, there's no private options. And to me, it's like, why would you not give these people, you know, that have the right intentions, at least the option? Because to me, you would have the good people, but they would be properly incentivized to do the right thing and continue on being good people. Because if you go into these corrupt organizations, as anyone realizes, is it's going to be just a matter of time before whether you do it one time on one day and then you regret it and it takes you, but you're going to be more susceptible to doing the wrong things because, like I say, it's the atmosphere, it's the environment that can be quite toxic. And if you're that good cop and you try to, rat out, go to the superior towards your, like because of that, the whole culture is you're now going to be targeted. You're now not going to be, you're going to get desk duty, or you're going to get, you're going to be treated much worse than if you were going to go out and carry favor and do the things that your superiors are asking of you. So to me, like I say, I want the people that want to be the defenders in society and the protectors in society to have an option where they can go and do that job, but at the same time be held accountable by the public who pays them.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people already recognize that, because I talk to people all over Canada, and most of the people that I talk to are obviously right wing, but they've already come to the realization that we should definitely localize a lot more things than what we have in this big system of collectivism. We can't keep going the way it is, because it costs too much money.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line. It costs too much money, and we don't have enough taxes to take from people to keep it going and going and going and going. When I was in the military, end of year budget, if we had anything left over in the budget, we spent it.
Yeah,
we spent it on crap. Didn't need it.
Every government institution is the same way. Sorry, yes. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but it's the same. I just give you one example of my buddy that worked for the local salt shed, right? Here in the rural parts of New Brunswick. Yeah, if they had lots of salt left over, well, you better go out and spread her everywhere, because you want to make sure to keep that budget up for next year, right? So, but of course that's the incentive, because government doesn't function off of a profit motive. So, if you can just economically enslave future generations to pay for the budget now, well, yeah, I guess you can do that, right? But it's kind of bad for the people that are going to be born later and paying off. I mean, Canada's debt is so high. Yeah. And that's the thing, because it's spread out provincially and federally, they like to play this thing. But if you combine all of the debt, personal, provincial, local, provincial, federal, and business debts, what is it? 350% of GDP is what it is. So, and the U.S. is a basket case already at 330. But if Canada's even 20% higher than that, that tells you, well, that's 3.5 times what you're making in the run of a year. You can't sustain that, which is, like I say, the golden rule no longer exists. At least past generations used to believe or have the general understanding you try to pay off your debt, each generation rather than passing it off to the next generation. So now, but all like that, like I say, especially once they severed the ties with the gold standard, and now the governments can basically just print money and anytime they see fit. Well, that's what you're getting. So there's no way. I mean, think about it. How would you ever be able to hold anyone to account that has the power of the printing press? Like, come on, that's basically an impossibility, right? But anyways, sorry, go ahead there, Thomas. What do you have to say there, man?
There's another problem too with the stock market. They just shovel through cash, and they're ripping people's pensions right off. It's called naked short selling.
Oh yeah.
They don't deliver the stock that they sold, so it's complete fraud.
Yeah,
100% fraud. They never deliver the stock. They never had the stock to sell.
Yeah,
but taking the money from our pensions, all public pensions, they just rake them.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know it's horrendous. There's so many different Ponzi schemes, even the stock market itself. And if you pay attention, although very few people do, you have to be a monetarist or an economics wonk. And I kind of am in some way, because I find this stuff a little bit interesting as of late. But most people don't pay attention to central bank fucking memos or bulletins, right? But they basically admit as such is the stock market, because of the, what was it, $3.5 trillion subsequent to the economic, there was the financial crisis of 2008, $3.5 trillion went out to basically prop everything back up. The stock market. So the stock market as it is now, there's definitely some stocks on the market that, yes, if you withdrew some of that stimulus Q1, QE1, QE2, QE3, all that printed money, you would still have very profitable and prosperous businesses, no doubt about it. But a lot of it is based on, and same with these social media platforms, there's a reason why they call them unicorns, right? Because does a unicorn really exist? Are these valuations truly a reflection of what these companies are truly worth? Not really, because it could change so quickly, right? I mean, we've seen that after the .com bubble in the early 2000s, how, some of these valuations can really fall through the floor because what are they built on? If people chose tomorrow, Facebook's old, I'm done with it. A huge mega billion-dollar company ceases to exist, and it's like, well, there's your unicorn, and that valuation that you're seeing on the markets and on the exchange, like, it's not representation of reality, because once again, everything is built and based upon all this central planning and the monetary stimulus and printing of money. So it's so fake. That's why there's that great divide in central banks. If you've seen even the lines, like, there's been a divergence between the haves and the have-nots. But as soon as the central planner stepped in after the financial crisis, that's when that 1%, or actually really the top 0.01%, it really took off, because who do you think got access to all that, trillions of dollars of stimulus money? It wasn't me. Nobody sent me no paycheck. Did you get one, Thomas?
No. Bombardier keeps getting them, though.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. And I mean, that's a company that, like, come on. I mean, nothing like rewarding bad behavior and terrible business decisions. Like, holy shit. How many times has that company got to screw up and late on deliveries and malfunctions and recall and constantly being propped up by us? To me, like, I just imagine, like, these are adults making these decisions. Did any of them ever raise any kids? Because I'm really curious, because if you've ever raised a child ever in your life, you're like, let's see, if you keep giving them everything hand over fist, right? How does that usually turn out? Right? And exactly. So how do you possibly think that's a good idea with these corporate, if even a kid, will take advantage of that kind of shit, those kind of initiatives or incentives? What do you think full-grown adults are going to do? Like, come on, like, that's just insanity.
They put these condos up in Toronto, okay?
Yeah.
On the very tip top of the condos, condo building usually going for $20-40 million. The one that had Trump's name on it, was bought by a Russian billionaire. And my buddies that were there putting the elevator in, they all had to work on the weekend, and the buddy came and gave them all prepaid credit cards.
Wow.
For coming in on the weekend to build the elevator.
Nice.
These guys got more cash than they know what to do with. They got yachts out in the Mediterranean that are bigger than my house.
Oh yeah.
They got ocean liners going back and forth trading with China. Like, when they come to our ports, they leave our ports almost empty. They bring stuff here.
Yeah, they don't take nothing back. No. Well, what the hell do we build here in Canada, right? We outsource everything. That always drove me nuts, even as an East Coaster. Like, Irving is a huge company here on the East Coast, and it always drove me nuts. They finally got into a little bit more of the value-added processing here in Canada, but a lot of it, just go tear all the trees down, ship them down the U.S. or to mills in the Maine, and they do all the added value, which is actually where a lot of the job creation takes place, right? There's not a whole lot that's actually required in terms of actually in the actual woods, in terms of cutting down lumber, because now you have big, huge harvesters and machines that can do these jobs in such short amount of time with very few amount of people. But if you add all the extra processes that takes place in doing the subsequent, like whether it's the kiln drying, whether it's the cutting of the wood, whether it's making the molding, whether it's, producing the MDF boards, or, there's a gazillion things that you can do after the fact, which actually should take more place in Canada. Now, I'm a big fan of free trade as well, and the division of labor. But one thing that Canada has got to do, and I think even some of the leaders, as they want to call themselves, right, are even starting to recognize that, sounded like a good idea to outsource all these jobs to places such as China. But look, now they've got basically a stranglehold on the power of the economy and labor and resources. And so, well, not so much the resources, but if you're the one that produces everything, that gives you a lot of power. And now even China apparently has got such purchasing clout. Not only are they starting to challenge the U.S. in terms of a world superpower, but now they're even suggesting they might very well create a gold-backed currency yuan, or something, gold backed, but based on like cryptocurrency or blockchain type technology, which if they do that, I have to tell you, me personally, but I'm a principled person, so I wouldn't do it. Personally, I would recognize that even though that might have be more stable in terms of saving my purchasing power of my currency, I could never, convince myself to buy or use a currency from a country as corrupt as China, run by a communist party, right? But if they do that, there's a lot of institutional investors lack morals entirely. All they really do is see green, and they'll do it. They'll use it if it saves them from the American dollar constantly being devalued. So what that'll end up doing at the end of the day is turn the U.S. Or not turn them, but kind of force them to pivot towards creating their own digital type cryptocurrency, right? Built on the block, which, you know, some of that sounds good in theory. And but to me, if it's set up or initiated by government, I just don't trust that either. Now, if it's like built on a private, like right now, your Ethereum or Bitcoin, and it's private, decentralized, I'm all for having I'm all for advancing technologies. I just don't want, like I say, my ability, my person power, what I'm worth, the value of my labor, the value of I don't want all that in the hands of a central planner or government. And I think that's going to ultimately take place. So we have to put our P's and Q's in order. Canadians, Americans, people in a lot of the Western developed worlds that care about free markets, care about freedom and individual liberty, they do need to start bringing and reshoring some of these jobs. Now, are there going to be transitional aspects in terms of temporary inflation? Yes. But when I hear people that get all shock and awe and worried about, but that's where you're going to see this crazy inflation. Well, maybe not. But like I say, these business owners, these corporate execs, they all realize the only way to sell their products is if people are actually wealthy enough to afford them. So you might actually see, now there would have to be obviously increases in the prices, but if these business owners, these corporations recognize, well, there's going to have to be an increase in prices, well, they might also have to find other ways to find cost savings so that their employees have a higher amount of purchasing power in terms of what their wages are. Because like I say, just like Henry Ford figured out 100 years ago, not much good, you selling 10 Model A's a week, and it works okay, but it's a lot better if you can sell 1,000 a week because you're paying your people enough to be able to buy them themselves, right? So I believe the incentive structure, if you create, but people are so worried about the free market that if you try it, it's going to upset the apple cart. Try it sometime, you'll see it. You'll be like, oh shit, we should have done this a long time ago. That's the thing. Everyone's scared of change. I'm not. I recognize, and because I don't rely on one person doing something or one individual entity, I'll realize that there's competition. That's the beautiful thing of competition. If somebody fucks up, okay, well, there's someone else that's going to do a better job, right? So that's the beauty of the market. It's that invisible hand that Adam Smith talked about that I trust. And not that I trust every individual, but I do trust people that are going to do the right things that's incentivized for their bottom good. Because if it's going to be working for their bottom good, just like a business owner, and I have run a business, people think, if you own a business, you're just this greedy person. As a business owner, I don't know if you've ever run a business, but you actually, tell you the truth, there's lots of times in my life, it's like, I think I'd rather go back and just be an employee, because as the business owner, you're the one that first guy there to show up, the last guy to leave. You got to worry about a whole lot of extra crap. You're the one that's on the hook if anything happens, or if you're building, electrical catches fire, or you have something happen. So you have a tremendous amount of responsibility. Plus, you have to appeal not just to your employees and make sure you retain them, but it's that customer base that brings in all that value, right? Which means you got to be willing to put your head down. I've never seen a boss, an owner of a business, tell the customers, I don't care what you say. Matter of fact, if you've ever seen them, chances are you could start the stopwatch and it's not going to be very long. His business is going to be done over, because the minute you put your customers' needs on the back burner in a private system, in a market-driven economy, well, then you don't. Yeah, your business isn't going to work. And that's not my opinion. That's based on just human realities, right?
That's market research. You can find that anywhere on the internet. If your customers are unhappy, you will never get a call back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or if you do, it's not going to be nice. They'll be nasty.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so Thomas, was there anything now, like I say, so we kind of covered a little bit of the police pay, but is there anything else that you want me to clarify in terms of like the defund of the police? Because to me, that's the most important thing, because I hear the way the media is presenting this whole story. And obviously I'm not burn everything down, just like with government. I'm against government. I believe government is a fictional construct. Well, not just that it is, but because I realize that people are believers. I don't plan on saying, let's abolish government tomorrow. But what I want to do, to me, this is actually in the way I usually approach things, with that kind of taking that extreme position, is because that is the truth. But I would never advocate, okay, let's just abolish government tomorrow, because basically what would you end up with? People are like, well, what the hell do we do now? Nobody. So, and I mean, some people would be able to self-organize. Other people would be opportunists for sure, and take advantage of the fact that there was a complete breakdown of society. But what I am concerned about the most, and the reason why I go to that extreme when I talk about these things, is because just like with your kids, You don't pussyfoot around. When it's time, you just say, listen, Santa Claus wasn't real. I'm sorry I lied to you all those years, but at least once they know it's not real, then you can kind of get over that. I'm just trying to tell people, listen, this is the system we function in now. It's built on mystical constructs of people that were hundreds of years ago that thought, and it was a great experiment and it worked pretty good for a while. But like I say, they left out a couple key areas, and the key area was they left the exception there where some people can take some reins of power or control or have some authority that we don't have. And the minute you create any kind of institution or entity that allows certain people to have rights that you and I don't have, well, that sets it up. Where do you think that the bad people, the evil people, where do you think they're going to gravitate to? A petty thief, like I've said in many past streams, a petty thief, he's got to go pick your pocket himself. And he knows, well, if he gets caught, you might turn around and knock him right up the side of the fucking head, right? Whereas if he can win government and tell you that, no, you hand over your wallet because I said, and you're supposed to, right? Well, that's a much easier way to rob you because he's not in any danger then, right? Because you believe.
Well, there's other things too. There's a little caveat with that. You ever heard of the family compact?
The family compact? Yeah, I think I have actually, but the social contract, okay, actually bring it. Yeah, I think I have, but you might want to freshen my memory. So, I do remember it, but I'm not 100% sure what year.
The family compact during the foundation of this country, when the charter and all that was being written and stuff, the family compact was the ruling elite political power in the country at the time. Right here in Ontario and Toronto. And they pretty much own everything. They pretty much own all the infrastructure, or they sold off a bunch of stuff to their family members. Like, and it extends out. If you watch their family tree, it just goes way out, right? Because it's 200 years later. But that's who really owns Canada.
Yeah.
It isn't really the citizens. Or just
I know. No, I know that.
Just,
the only problem, though, I hear what you're saying there. But, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
It's really complicated. It's really, really complicated when you actually dive into the history or follow the family tree and stuff, and then you can match who owns what infrastructure to the family.
Mm-hmm.
This is where it gets complicated because those families are operating underneath trusts, which is a private organization.
Okay, but see, when you say that stuff, this is the problem, and I get people all the time, and they get mad at me because, like, and some of them are 100% right on the money, but to me, it's like, I've always been this way. I'm so much about efficiency, man, which is why I love to talk rather than type, because I can get out of my mouth and say and express things in 5 minutes that would take me, right? So I'm all about efficiency, and I get what you're saying, and even if that proved to be 100% all true, the thing is, it's like, take yourself back, a couple hundred years, in the West, or even not even 100 years ago in the US, but slavery, right? Think about if you were trying to get rid of the very concept of human ownership. I mean, there could have been lots of people that would say, oh no, it's them. I don't know, you hear people, it's the Rothschild, or I don't know, or it's just those Southern plantation owners from this. Like, what it is you can always point to certain individuals, certain groups, or certain societies or secret society that might very well. But at the end of the day, this is the most powerful thing that I think most people need to understand, which means you can forget about all the other things that you had. Well, keep it in your mind. That's all important. Keep that stuff in your mind for sure. But like I say, rather than, the king rules over us, or it's the governor, it's just, like I say, just get people, just like today, if you tried to create a thing, it's like, hey, let's start a whole new slavery. Let's start new plantations. The reason why people would not accept it, because they realize that morally, slavery is wrong. It's corrupt. It's evil. It's vile. So really, and because government is by definition a monopoly of force or violence, where people are given the authority or the supposedly right to do things that you and I can't do. All you really have to do at the end of the day, which is why I advocate for the intellectual evolution, because I always use the phrase, true liberty requires evolution, not revolution. Because revolutions actually, you're just going to end up, like I say, all these social experiments, we end up back the same thing. The Roman Empire rises and collapses. And then, so can we at least stop doing this crazy insanity? It would be good for a while. You and I would benefit from it, but I'm thinking long term. So let's get humans on board with just accepting the fact that having this entity that claims a right or authority to do things that you and I are not allowed to do. Can we just abolish that idea entirely? Now, what we want to call it going forward, it can't be called government, obviously, but if you want to have all those things, Like even people that advocate for a socialized healthcare system. Well, really all that is, right? If you want a healthcare system where it's a whole bunch of people that pay into a pool, right? And people that use it, that's called insurance. Now, you can have a private type of insurance because all you're really talking about at the end of the day is not that difficult if you think about it. You just need a bunch of people. Now, the old days, bringing that idea to fruition and putting into practice would have been much more difficult because there would have been a tremendous amount of logistics that would have to take place. But because of smart contracts built on, encryption technology and blockchains, well, we could have that set up where everyone pays in, everyone knows, like, because the blockchain tracks, it has a built-in ledger that everybody gets a copy of. So everyone knows. Now they don't see who has it. That's the thing. It has to be a decentralized type of ledger, not one set up by government where they know what's taken place, but they don't know exactly who unless you want to be known, right? So you can anonymize it if you want to. Like, let's say you want to do, buy something, whatever that you don't want other people to know about, or if you want it public, but you should at the end of the day have that choice. But on a blockchain, like I say, because you can't, the minute somebody tries to fudge the blockchain by manipulate it, everyone else on the blockchain gets a copy of, so this guy, so we would know if the transaction was a false one the minute someone tries to do it because everybody gets a copy of that ledger. Now, you don't get to see it all like broken down line by line. It's just like an alert that tells you that somebody and this block over here is doing so. So you could basically go to that person or whoever that is, or that block and say, okay, they're no longer part. And now, part of this the structure. But like I say, it would all be built on actual contracts where we would all be able to say, okay, I've read the contract. Yes, I agree that I need to pay X amount, let's say per month or per year for a particular kind of healthcare or any other kind of service. My roads, man. Like, as a former paver, I've never seen a politician out building roads. Right now, in terms of land appropriation and figuring all that out, yes, you need to do that, but in Western countries in particular, like, we've got most of the main infrastructure that we need. So that's not even that difficult. Most of the roads are already built, right? So not suggest that we might not need roads in the future. But like I say, all these ideas that people think about and they seem so difficult, just like what you're saying, they're only difficult if you try to, like I say, figure out a one size fits all approach or a way to figure out how to, but you can't. That's the beauty of the market. Like I say, that's how you open it up to competition so that and allow them to be properly incentivized, and you'll see some amazing ideas. Well, like Elon Musk, like I was kind of alluding to earlier, no private company through all of human history has ever been able to leave Earth's atmosphere, right, on its own. Now I get, and people will say, and this is true, Elon definitely gets subsidized and funded in some way by the government. But the reason why they do it is because NASA actually saves so much money by using the private entity, because they're listed on the stock market, and because they have to be profitable, they have to make sure everyone of the board members are all happy and right and all that stuff. That holds them to account, and that keeps their budget in much better in check. Like, Elon Musk is sending people up there today at like just a fraction of the cost of what NASA would have been able to do. And like I say, if we can do it in terms of putting human beings, strapping them on a rocket, right, send them out of our atmosphere, and the private company can do that and make sure that they're responsible and making sure these people are safe and they have the proper protocols in place, then a lot of the other things that people get overly concerned about, actually, that's what I'm a really big fan about Elon Musk and this SpaceX adventure is it's one of those beautiful examples of, because, 50 years ago, you can't do that. No private company could ever do that. Well, it has, and they've done it. So for people that always question the things that can't be done or suggest they're impossible, they're never the ones that are the innovators or the creators. So I won't worry about the naysayers, right?
It's never them. It's always the scientist or the engineer that's the forward thinking, like looking for new ideas, all that kind of stuff. There's a Japanese guy, scientist, physicist, that is building a rocket that he can send up into space and or in our atmosphere anyway, to collect all the garbage that's up there.
Nice.
All the fragments and stuff like this. And he got funded by the Japanese government, and NASA gave him a bunch of money, and a whole bunch of other people invested in his idea. And I hope it works, because if you can track all these pieces right now. NASA has this app that you can use, and I can't remember the number. It's it's a huge number that's out there, right? But they track every
2,500 or something.
It's a crazy amount, right? Like I don't know. We don't need to be polluting everything.
No, no. Well, that's what I mean. And a private, that's a beautiful thing. Like everyone knows. I mean, how many times you heard people say how inefficient, and you even kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier with the budget, right? So everyone knows instinctively, just by their anecdotal experience of their daily livings, that government is, they're just not incentivized to do things in a properly constructed manner. The problem is, though, is because government has such an amazing reach in terms of their propaganda, because they've basically got the education system and the media basically constantly paired in this constant, you need government, right? I mean, how many times you hear the hacks in the media, oh, we need government to do, like that's, and it gets people, like I say, raised from the time they were little kids in school all the way to adults, where they're constantly told that nothing can happen without government doing it. It's like, that's like, to me, that's just such a closing off of the mind. And us human beings,
I never believe that.
I know, right? I mean, we have such an amazing. Go ahead, Thomas. Go ahead.
My whole life, I've never believed that government was the only one with the answer. I always knew that was a false statement, and I always knew that whoever told me that was just, they were telling me it just to shut me up, or they didn't know any better. I don't know.
Yeah. Chances are it's definitely one of those two, right? That's actually, you bring that up. That reminds me when I was a kid, and it's like, damn it, that's probably why they said that. When I was a kid, or even just a young man, I was always told, never discuss politics or religion, right? Oh, I get it. Yeah, so don't look under there and see that shit, right? Because once I did, you'll realize what kind of reaction you're going to get. It's like, ooh, what a fucking mess. No wonder you guys didn't want me to see this or discuss it, or what it is. And I really, and the thing about it, growing up, I really didn't. And actually, it wasn't until the government becomes so authoritarian. And so, because I believe, just like most Canadians, like, I'm a Canadian, man. Like, listen, unless I do something really wrong, like where I commit a severe crime or an act of violence or something. But it wasn't until, like I say, that incident with the impaired driving, when I was driving my ATV on the trails and had my license and like going through the entire process, whether it's the initial charge and then lose my license because they take it away right then there before I've even gone to court. It's like, what? Wait a minute. Aren't we innocent until proven guilty? How the hell can you take my license away the minute you charge me? What? Wait. Anyways, that was just the first learning curve. And as a truck driver, long haul truck driver, was like, wait a minute, you're not just temporarily causing me some minor harm here. You're destroying my fucking livelihood here. This is my career. It's like taking the doctor's license away. It's like, yeah, well, like, right. Anyways, it's actually even worse for me, because where I live in New Brunswick, in the rural, like an hour outside of any city, not like I can just go anywhere else to get a job. At least a doctor could find some other occupation. Right?
No, it's pretty fair.
But like I said,
5 years.
Yeah, well, I'm between that and finding, like, especially with the mandatory minimums, learning about how they don't even judge you based on the facts of your case anymore. It's everybody gets a mandatory minimum sentence, which is so fucking weird. Like, what do you mean? You're just going to treat us all like NPCs? Do you not realize that me, a guy that's got like 1 million miles under my belt, and I can ride a fucking a street bike, an ATV, a dirt bike, I can do wheelies all day long at like 70, 80 mile an hour. But yet, if I have a couple beer on my four-wheeler, somehow, what? I'm a threat to the... Really? Well, you should see me if I got 20 in me, for fuck's sake. No, but like, I'm telling you, like, but the way they do it is because, they use that propaganda of the MAD campaigns where people, like, some idiot was the habitual drunk that we've all known, those dipshits, went out there and killed a family of 4 because he's a fucking reckless moron. And then that collective punishment enters into the fold where, oh, this person did something wrong, therefore we got to throw a blanket statement over all of society, come up with some arbitrary number. And now the minute you go over that, you're like that guy. It's like, whoa. That's some pretty fucked up shit right there. Because first of all, I've never caused a harm to one hair on one person driving anything. I've done a couple come off the back doing the wheeling, scrape my ass up a little bit, but I've never harmed anyone else other than myself. But I don't mind it. Like, I take that. I voluntarily, if I hurt myself, oh well, that's my problem, right? But like I said, going through the whole process and then even talking to, I thought, okay, once they find I'm a truck driver, and then I'm not a criminal or anything. No, but I went through the whole process. I even went through an appeal, and it's like, whether it's the court clerk, like I say, the police officers themselves, the judge, the crown, like, I couldn't fucking believe it. The 3-panel appeals, I couldn't believe. You look at them, it's like there's a human being there, but there's nothing behind the eyes other than someone repeating the policies. And once I see that, it just gives you that flashback moment of, okay, so this is what it was like when you were a Jew and fucking Nazis. Like, why are you putting us in the oven here? We didn't do anything wrong, right? I have to do it. It's part of the fucking, like, yeah, that kind of stuff really does freak the shit out of me. And I'm not a fan of order followers by any stretch of the imagination. And I know you come from a military background, so no offense to you. But like I say, there's a lot of them that will do some fucking crazy shit because someone told them to do it that's in some position of authority, which I know it's weird, and it is like it's almost like I say, that's why I believe that government is basically akin to a religion, because most people, or a cult, right? Because most people would not do such things unless they were enamored into a cult-like mindset, right?
Oh, it's a cult. Yeah, it's 100% cult.
Yeah.
I've said that for years now. I've been trying to wake people up for the past 10 years or so to see how like wasteful our government is. But you know, just, nobody really has any time to think about it or do anything about it because they're not in office and they don't want to go into office. So, but like to bring up a point about government drones. Funny story. When I was in the Army, I said to my sergeant, I'm like, you know what? We probably shouldn't go through this hole because we're going to get stuck. We went through the hole and we got stuck. And I said, look, you should have went around. He goes, well, you know, I'm a sergeant, blah, blah, blah. So, you know, like ideas come from the ground up, bud. They don't come down from you, okay? Because you're the one that has the bird's eye view. If I have a good idea, you should probably do it. I don't know. I mean,
well, you know, especially
space. We didn't get to space because we have a moderator in Parliament.
Yeah, well, when it comes to like especially military guys like yourself, the reason why, and I do end up having a lot of them that follow my channel, and they do get, some of them get pissed off, but that's how you know the ones that have actually thought through things. The ones that fully understand, grasp, like I say, I've done bad things in my life, and you know, once I recognize that I've done something wrong, as long as what I consider, you know, repent, acknowledge that I've made mistakes, and blah, blah, then you know, we're all, like I say, we're all fallible human beings. My concern, my issue, I have usually when it's people, if I'm talking, whether it's people that are police or military guys, are the ones that, like I say, just constantly want to hammer away at the political talking points without actually sitting and engaging in a discussion, which you're not doing. That what I like about people like you is you're someone that's willing to actually sit and talk and admit, like, yeah, this is a culty kind of thing, but that's what I mean. Because a lot of people I recognize, especially the military, less so for the police, but in particular the military, most of the people that I've known, and I've been friends with a lot of the guys. Well, I mean, Gagetown's is just not far from where I am. So, and a lot of them just really, really awesome guys. But yeah, they come from a long line of, a lot of times very religious, very right wing, very, you know, and they're taught, and it's a great thing that they're taught, like in terms of defend the country. The problem is once you've been susceptible to that idea, then all it is they can tell you that, oh, whatever you do, oh, you're doing it for your country. But that's the thing. A lot of people are like, but am I? Right? Is Canada really safe, right? By going to invade in Afghanistan? I don't, you know, personally, when it comes to especially
go.
What's that?
Why did I have to go to Afghanistan to get my freedom back? How the hell did it get over there?
Right? I don't get it.
It just doesn't make any sense. It never made any sense to me. I understood, even at a young age, I was like, I'm going to go to war because this billionaire over here wants to steal some opium. That's it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, come on, like even Russia, and that's the thing. Once people realize that, 90% of the world's opium basically comes from Afghanistan. So it's, you know, think about opium, like all the drugs, the big pharma, like, you know, a lot of that stuff. So big, a lot of people. I mean, Russia tried it for what, 8 or 9 years before that, right? And to me, it's just so ridiculous. As far as I'm concerned, the wisest thing that could have been done during this, whether you're talking about, you know, ISIS or Osama bin Laden, is the special forces guys. Why the hell do you got to? That's all you need, right? Is you need guys to do, you know, target the particular actors or individuals who are part and parcel, but invade an entire country. What a fucking squandering of all of our resources, right? Like that is so foolish. Send a few guys. I mean, come on, especially Canada and the US, we got some wicked guys. What do we got? We got a sniper here in Canada. Didn't we have a guy that did like 3.5 kilometers shot or some shit like that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, actually, we got talent.
Met that guy.
Did you? That's awesome. Yeah. So like we've got the talent, and between the US and the JTF and there's all kinds of ways that you could have handled that situation. But like I say, big government and the military industrial complex, because that's the other thing. They're building a lot of military machinery. They need to be able to put some of that shit to use. Hey, it's over there collecting rust, right? So that's
I'll tell you one thing though. You can't deploy your special forces in a country unless you're protected. You just can't do it. The JTF guys, they're only going in with like 3-4 guys. If they get ambushed, they're dead.
Oh yeah.
So
No, I don't just mean a couple. Yeah, like I don't mean like an actual but I mean you don't need a big giant military force and spending, well, Iraq was worse, I think, even than Afghanistan. But we're into the trillions of dollars. Like
we were only a support, basically.
Yeah, like
we were basically support for the Americans. The Americans had over 500,000 troops in Iraq.
Yeah.
In 2006. Okay, their vehicle field is like 100 acres of vehicles. It's the amount of equipment that they left there because they didn't want to bring it back because it would cost too much in fuel.
Yeah, I know, that's crazy. It's crazy. So now the foreign fighters and the ISIS and they got access to all that equipment and right. So it's just also crazy. But anyways, like that's a moot point because there's nothing we can change about that. But to me, that's the most important thing and why this conversation is important to me is to get people thinking more clearly. Like there are like even what I brought up. I mean, like you're saying, you're telling me there's probably better ways. There's always option. The problem with government is government's always a one size fits all approach and a one way, like basically a one way street. Like, can we try? To me, what I've noticed and recognized my whole life is individuals and, like I say, competition, markets, incentive structure. If you get that stuff right, I have a tremendous amount of faith in a lot of human beings because there's some really smart, really brave, really wise, like creative people.
You basically want to deregulate, right? You want to deregulate a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I want to open up. Like, I want people to be free to have options. That's what I mean. And now the thing that matters most for a libertarian to me, though, is to keep those core ideals that are part and parcel of the post-Enlightenment era and Western values, which is, individual rights and liberties, right? And the self-ownership, like I own me. Nobody claims ownership over me. Property rights. If I buy property or if my money is my money, nobody has any claim or ownership over it. Just the pretty stuff that's pretty easily understood by most of us by the time we're 5 or 6 years old. But like I say, we learn these things as kids, but then we grow up as adults. Not all of us. Some of us learn to keep the principles and maintain them in our life as best we can. But a lot of people grow up and they forget all about those amazing principles and ideas that serve them so well for most of their life and most in their private life. Like, most Canadians, in your private life, you don't use force or violence towards most people. You don't go to the store and say, I demand that you do that or I'll kick your ass, right? No, and you don't say to your buddy, oh, you better fucking run the store for me and get me a case of beer. So we all know that the proper incentive structure is, to treat people the way you would want to be treated yourself. But like I say, we've got this big, gigantic institution that started out pretty small in our Western countries 150 years ago or so, or 200 or so in the US. But look at, like I say, because we left that back door, that gate wide open for people, the authoritarians. Oh, look, this is the place where power rests and resides. Well, that's where I want to be, right? The minute you leave that gate open, that door open, like I say, the gate is open. Really, it's in our minds because we believe we should allow people to have these positions, right? And really, that's all I want to do at the end of the day. I don't want to be like the one that constructs how society. When people say, well, how would society be after that? It's like asking, well, how would slavery be? Or, how would we pick cotton after slaves? I don't fucking know. Somebody will figure it out, though. I'm pretty sure of that, because then there'll be an incentive to get the cotton picked without slaves. And guess what? They created these machines. It does it instead, right? Humans will be innovative and creative.
Well, see, like we always try and put everything, all the onus on somebody else. We just kind of deflect all the responsibility onto something that doesn't serve us immediately or personally. It just it serves the whole collective, right? Yeah. But like here's a big problem. We have 1,000 lobbyists for big pharma and only 2 or 3 for gun rights. Like, what's going on with that? How come we only have 2 lobbyists? Are you kidding?
I know.
There's no money there. There's $0 going to a politician to fight for people in Canada have to own guns.
Yeah. None. It's crazy.
They have so much money that they can drown out anybody. And this is all corporate, giant corporations. They come out of left field. We don't even know who they are. We don't know who these people are. They show up in Parliament. They say, hey, Mr. O'Toole, we can do this for you in your jurisdiction. We can make this deal happen for you. If you want to sign on to our deal to get this passed for us or this legislation pushed through for our coworker over here, I mean, what do you think? Do you think we can make a deal or what? And they do it. They do it all the time. And you know what? If you had enough money, you could be a lobbyist yourself, and you could lobby for anything.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
It all depends on how much money you want to spend.
Which is why, to me, that's really important, and that was the one of the most important reasons why the founding fathers of the U.S. made sure to keep government at bay, separate the division of power. But obviously, like I say, it didn't work out ultimately in the end because, like I say, they left that gate open a bit. But yeah, there should not be any until we do finally get to the point where we don't no longer need leaders or I mean rulers. Then we should at the very least. Two things fundamentally should happen that all Canadians should be willing to get behind is, can we completely remove this concept of having a notwithstanding clause in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights or the Charter of Rights? Because they suggest that you have all these inherent, well, what it is they should be acknowledging, and it does actually, if you read our Charter of Rights, it does actually acknowledge at the very first part of the wording where our rights are God or the rule of law or the supremacy of God, right? So it does kind of at least allude to the fact that our rights are inherent, not afforded to us by government. So they at least somewhat acknowledge that. And then they list all these rights that you have. But then, like I say, they have this thing where it's a disclaimer where we have this notwithstanding clause where we can remove those rights or those liberties at any time we want. Well, wait a minute. If you can remove them by an act of legislation, well, then that's not really a right? That's a privilege, because a privilege you can remove, right? But a right, wait a minute. How's that work? You saying I have all these liberties, but under certain scenarios, you can take them away whenever you want. Well, wait a minute, because as we can see, the wording is so loose and written in that is they can come up and basically use that for any excuse. Now, fortunately, most of the times, and I don't say it's because the government's so benevolent. I think the reason why governments very rarely ever invoke the notwithstanding clause is because most Canadians are very conformist. They basically do what they're told, right? So the government's and that's what I always say to people when people say, well, look how peaceful Canada is. Well, no, but what it is you have a plantation where most of the slaves are very, very, very docile and conformist. That's the reason why you're not seeing the master out there with the whip, right? Because they're all picking the most cotton they can every day. So, the master's not going to get mad at them. Now, the odd outlier like myself that might challenge that authority from time to time, that's when you see, those freedoms really are just fake after all, right? I thought I had all these liberties and freedoms until I realized that, nope. The minute you step outside the bounds of what government says you're allowed to do, well, like I say, they could strip. Well, they basically took, like I say, a decade because of everything it did. The license was actually only the 3 months, then a year after that. But because, like I say, why don't you take a man's fucking license, his livelihood, his ability to pay for everything? It just doesn't magically when a year goes by. Okay, what a big pile of cash just fell on my lap. Now I can just start my life all over again. There's a huge amount of.
It's too complicated. We don't need to take people's licenses away. We don't need to take people's livelihoods away. What you should do is just drop a big charge on them.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely, yes, because I agree there should be proper incentives. Because I'm all for, I have 2 sons and my wife that travels every day. I don't want anything to happen to them either, right? But like I say, we all know that those habitual bad things are going to happen because bad people that have bad intentions or make mistakes, right? Maybe they don't even have bad intentions. Maybe they just did something that was a big. We know that stuff's going to happen. But being a super authoritarian towards people like myself and like I say, just outright, that to me, the easiest part for someone like me was actually just remove the mandatory minimums, which really should be unconstitutional. And actually, the only challenge that's ever gone to the Supreme Court in Canada in terms of mandatory minimum sentences was actually in terms of gun legislation. And I believe this was actually when Harper was still in power, but I believe the Supreme Court came down and struck down the mandatory minimum sentencing towards gun owners for particular charges, because they recognize and acknowledge it's unconstitutional. Now, what it is in Canada, apparently nobody that's been charged with impaired have been in the position financially to take that all the way to the Supreme Court. Fortunately, someone was, at least for the gun, because I think if someone did that, and if I had the ability to do so, I would have done so myself, but I just don't have the money to be able to do that. But I think if you took that all the way up to Supreme Court, they would have to, I would imagine, have to strike down mandatory, because to me, mandatory minimums, if you remove that, that would have placed that power in the judge, which is actually the power should be in the judge to determine my punishment, right? A local judge should be the one that's determining my punishment, because the local judge would have been the one. Oh, Bennett. Oh yeah. Okay. So he was riding his four-wheeler, no accident, nobody hurt, no injury, no. Okay. Yeah. We don't want you doing this, Mr. Hunter. Like, so yeah, deter me in some way. No doubt about that. But yeah, to destroy my livelihood and career over something so foolish, to me, it's, and once I realized that it can happen to someone like me, I realized, okay, now we're not just talking about, the low life scum of the earth criminals in Canada that are being arbitrarily detained because they're such bad at it. Like, no, I went through my whole life. Like I said, I even grew up in the East End of Scarborough when my parents moved me there, like in a getaway spot. I managed to even keep myself out of trouble for the most part growing up there. And yet, like I say, in my 40s, riding my ATV on a trail in rural New Brunswick, now I'm a criminal. I was like, how the hell does this happen? I just would have never thought in my life. And like I say, I'll probably on my grave, probably be one of the last words I say other than I love you, babe. Right. But it'd be, how the fuck did this happen? I still to this day. And like I say, it's been almost 10 years now since 2011, 2012 was the conviction date. So nine years from the day of the charge. I can't wrap my head around how that actually took place. And like I say, throughout the whole process, how there was nobody along there was like, can we find a way to make sure this guy at least can sustain his livelihood? And because to me, even if it was for their own best interest, because I could have been one of those guys. Now, luckily, I'm a pretty reasonable guy and I have a lot to live for and my family that matters a lot. But when you take someone down to that level and put them in such a desperate situation, I can't say it's completely out of the imagination for people to go a little bit fucking haywire when you destroy, when you put people in a position where there's basically nothing left because you've taken everything from them. Well, that you've actually created a pretty dangerous person at that point in time, right? Which to me, as a government person, aren't you thinking wise enough to maybe we shouldn't be creating a bunch of people that have no jobs and a whole lot of time on their hands to be pissed off? It just doesn't even make sense no matter how you look at it, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah,
right?
if they were motivated, they would do something. But I mean, I know lots of people that have been screwed over by the state personally, financially, and they're not angry about it. They're not they don't hold it against them. They're just like, whatever, they're just a bunch of criminals, can't do nothing about it. And that's basically where most people are at, really.
It is true. Yeah.
I mean, we're so beaten down that we have no fight left in us. 52% of Canadians don't even vote. They don't even vote. They don't care. They're just what? Who cares? Another criminal's getting in charge, and you know what? I'm not there to stop them. So good luck.
That's the thing. Well, part of me almost even understands, because they realize that it's just a fucking waste of time, anyways. Because what are you going to get? The Liberals or the Conservatives for the most part, or even worse than that, probably end dippers, right? So it's like it's basically two sides of the same bird. Now, like I say, I get in some aspects the Conservatives might be a little better in some regard, but in Canada, I don't even consider especially the Conservative Party. I don't even consider these people or the progressive Conservatives, they're not conservatives, man. If you know what a conservative is, these people do not. What's this? Nice, right on. I like it.
Party in 2018.
Really? That's awesome. Did you know actually years ago, I tried a little initiative and I even set up a Facebook page and I started promoting. Note it. None of the above. Basically it's I don't want them. I don't want this. But what it is, and I even found out now provincially in Ontario, you can go and spoil a ballot and they'll actually register as a protest ballot, right? So that's kind of cool. But federally, I found out, federally, you're not even allowed to do that. But I thought that would have been a great idea. Pencil. What's that? Yeah, I know. Right. But what I thought would have been such a great spectacle, and why I was really hoping, but once again, wishful thinking on my behalf, but I was really hoping if I could get that initiative to take off, and I see you were kind of thinking along the same lines, because I recognize that, because now that all this shit happened, I pay attention to all these things that I used to didn't pay attention. But I watch now on after the election results. So after this last election, the Liberals with the minority government, I think it was just over 6 million votes is what they got. That's what gave them their minority status. And prior to that, prior to that, was the conservatives that got what was it again? 5 point. They all get around that 6 million vote mark. Meanwhile, like you were saying, a lot of the Canadians are 50. There was actually at that time, there was 24 million. Okay, because I got to go back to the first one because I don't remember all the numbers, but at the time, there was 24 million of the 37. Well, there wasn't 37 million then. It was, I think, 35 million. 24 of the 35 million Canadians that were citizens were eligible to vote. So, people that were old enough, actual citizens, all that stuff. So that out of that 24 million, was it? Yeah, 14 million voted and 10 million didn't. But the 14 million that voted split up over all the parties. So 6 million, let's say, like I say, I'm just picking numbers here, but it's roughly around that. Let's say 6 million for the Liberals when they got it. Let's say 5 for the Conservatives and the rest divvied up to the other parties. But the party that won was 6 million. 10 million didn't do shit. To me, it's like the Note Initiative what a message that would have sent. Could you imagine if after election day, you could have been able to say, okay, the Liberals got 6 million, the Conservatives got this, but NOTA got 10. I'd be like, well, there we go. Well, I guess we don't need any of these fuckers. We're out. We're done. None of the above. That's who our new party is.
Also, too, I mean, I would love to see a bunch of individuals run for parliament and get in. Like they don't have any party. Like, screw parties. Forget them. Throw them away.
Yeah.
A bunch of individuals get in there and they start roundhousing everybody.
Yeah. I agree. Every MP should be someone that's just standing on whatever their principles are, not aligned in or beholding to a party. Because that's the thing. Like you say, you have all these MPs, 338 of them, but they all got to bow to the feet of the one. So what's the fucking difference? Right? It's like it's a redundancy of 337 people that you don't fucking need. Basically, is what that works out to me. Right?
Yeah. That's what this is. It's a make work project.
Yeah.
That's how it feels sometimes.
It is, yeah. And that's the thing. Actually, the work part of it's actually not even the gravy. It's the after you're done work, and then you get that nice golden pension for the rest of your life till you croak. Like, damn, right? And what is it in Canada? You only got to serve, what is it, 6 years or something, or whatever the hell it is. Not very long, anyways. Sorry, go ahead.
I think it's 8 years.
Oh, it's 8? Okay, yeah, well, either way, but like still 8 years and you're golden. Like that's pretty good, because that's the thing with those government, the MP, those type of salaries are all adjusted for inflation. So no matter how much money print they do, your raises and your pay rates always stay out in the ahead of inflation. Whereas those of us in the private sector, like I tell this to people all the time. I worked in a lumberyard in the West End of Toronto back in 1991, and I was making $13.60 an hour. I went to work when I lost my truck driver's license in 2012. Like I say, that summer of 2012, we moved to Ontario. I went into new home construction. Guy started me out there at $16 an hour as a laborer. I was like, what? This is fucking 25 plus years later, when I was making like $13.60 an hour. Gas was 39 cents a liter, right? Fucking apartment was $300 some. Now you're paying me just barely above that, and everything is like triple, quadruple that price. Like, what? I couldn't believe how terrible, like, the pay for people in the private sector, how terrible they have been in terms of trying to stay in front of inflation, which is why people are losing. The only thing that has saved a lot of people today, especially on the lower end of the social economic ladder, is the slave labor in China. We get lots of cheap junk that we can buy. That's about it. Because all the state. What's that?
It's a huge problem. I don't agree with kind of labor at all.
No, me neither.
We shouldn't be exploiting people like that.
No, we should only listen. As far as I'm all for free trade, but it has to be free trade in a fair and more an ethical manner. So if it's Western countries where their countries are developed, so at least wages are somewhat right. Doesn't have to be the same, but at least kind of somewhere along. So there's some actual competition, right? But yeah, if you can go to a country where they're paying like 1/1000th, right, of what you're paying, like that, yeah, that's not, yeah, like I say, because like basically because
I don't like. You know what? I just don't feel comfortable knowing that there's 20 million Chinese making $1 a day.
Exactly.
All this crap that we buy for 30, 50, 60, $80.
Yeah. And if you think about it, those things that we buy, I mean, they're good, and I'm glad that there's things that we have at our disposal. But they're not the staples. They're not the things that we actually need to require. Like, think about what all of us human beings need in our country, like in Canada, is you need your roof over your head, you need food in your belly, right? You need fuel in your car and all that stuff. The staples and to heat your home are all the things where the inflation has been rampant, right? Because look at how high the price and costs are of everything else that we actually require to sustain ourselves. That's the part that drives me nuts. And the only place where we're trying to balance these days is, like I say, offsetting all those ridiculous expenditures and costs that are inflation derived, but we're offsetting it somehow with the slave labor by buying cheaper goods from China. But as you work out, not only is it bad for the people in China, but even a lot of the products that we buy are basically disposable or throwaways or very inferiorly made in an inferior manner, right? Which means not only are you exploiting the labor of these Chinese people, but now you're creating a lot of that waste. The environmentalists are all like, they're all up in arms about all this waste. Well, the reason why there's so much waste is because we're buying a lot of shit that basically has a built-in timeline of like a week in terms of use, right? So
we don't actually recycle anything. We don't do any kind of real recycling in this country at all.
Not a whole lot, that's for sure.
We have like these blue bins that we put at the end of our driveways and stuff like that, but this isn't real recycling. This is just putting it in a truck, and I watch what the truck does. It just puts it all in the same spot, crushes it, comes out the back, and then they process it through the plant. Like, and
right.
you ever been to a dump?
Oh yeah, there used to be dumps where
area with sand. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
what are we doing with?
Yeah, no, I know. It's crazy, man. It's crazy. But anyways, before I go on, I just wanted to see, because there's a bunch of people in the chat there, and I've been just rambling on. Well, I've been enjoying my conversation with you, so I really appreciate it. Now, the only one thing I will say, I'll check in a couple of the comments here, but one thing I will say, we didn't really get to the actual banning of Antifa thing. Yeah. But what was your, I was just curious, because I know you kind of, you iterated, it's not that you were supporting banning, because you recognize that would be probably a ridiculous concept to begin with, but you were kind of alluding or suggesting that maybe classify them as a terrorist organization. Do you still think?
You can classify Antifa as a terrorist organization all day long, but you can't go after that organization for terrorism. You can go after individuals for terrorism, because that's the way that our laws are set up.
Right.
Just because they have this organization with 1,000 people, let them congregate. Let them do their dumb ideas. I don't care. I don't care what they talk about. But what I want our government to do is to have the political will and balls to go after these people. Go after them. If you have all this infrastructure, you got all these people, investigators, CSIS, RCMP, intelligence, all this crap. Okay, they already know who's the bad player, but they're not going after them. They're developing sources. They're trying to make a relationship with them and all this kind of work with them and whatever. You know what? Financial crime is the biggest terrorism of all, of the whole world. The whole world. It's the biggest terrorist plot in the whole world. Economic warfare. Yeah. That is huge. And it's everywhere. It's systemic. And we don't do anything about it. But most people just laugh about it. They're like, oh, you know, it's just a joke that Parliament can rake in billions of dollars from this drug dealer down in the southern tip of Bermuda or whatever, bring up his money in here to build a plant, and then hire Canadians. It's fine. He can launder his money all he wants, and we're not going to do anything about it because all his crime is on the other side of the world. Yeah. Why are we doing business like this? It doesn't do anything for me. It doesn't do anything for your kids. It's not going to do anything for my kids in the future. You're just allowing corruption to congregate here and build this massive ball of crap bigger and bigger. Before you know it, we won't be able to deal with it. And it'll be a huge problem. And the police, all these people that are supposed to be our safeguards, they won't be able to do anything. They just can't.
Listen, I hear what you're saying. Like I say, I just got to point out, because I would be remiss if I didn't, because it's kind of my thing. But you just kind of made a logical fallacy there when you kind of did it. Because what you said is, like, government needs to go after Antifa. But it's like, but listen, I'm not going, like I said, I understand. Like, to me, especially because we've all been like indoctrinated into this cult of statism for so long, I get how hard it is to try to break free from it. But basically what you're saying is government. But see, that's the thing. Antifa has no power. You got a bunch of people that some of them will want to be violent thugs, and some of them in there are 100% bunch of fucking little petty thugs and tyrants, no doubt about it. But also you have some people that are just, they're naive, they're foolish, and they think, well, I'm against fascism. So to me, once you classify the organization or the group as Antifa, now you're catching a lot of people that have good intentions, right? You're catching up the good people into the bad, which is why I like to deal with people as individuals. And now, but when you said government go after them, see, to me, I'm not scared. As a matter of fact, I'm not scared of one Antifa person. I've watched a lot of these Antifa guys or girls, mostly some of them it's hard to fucking tell because, man, these guys definitely not working out or anything. Right? But anyways, because wearing them little skinny jeans and shit and all that, it's like some of these guys, like, really, like, come on. And this is the part that kind of, especially for the guys, and I'm not going to say it like negative to you, but you're look like a strapping dude. I'm pretty sure you can handle a fucking couple Antifas, right? But they're no threat to me or you. Government, on the other hand, now here's the problem with it, which is why I have to be consistent in my logic and my thinking is, okay, now I get, and you would probably identify as conservative or right wing. Now I get it because Antifa is left, but like I say, try slipping that shoe on the other foot, right? Let's say you joined the yellow vesters. I'm not suggesting that the yellow vesters are terrorists, but let's say a couple of yellow vesters did some violent stuff and they created, because, you know, Trudeau likes to paint it right wings and the yellow vesters. You heard some of this stuff, right? And like I say, love the yellow vesters. They're nothing. I'm just using it as a hypothetical example. But what if the lefties determined that, oh, let's label yellow vesters, or I don't know if you got any far right, like Lemieux in Quebec, I think, or any of these, what they call far right, and they're constantly talking about it. And now they're getting the incel, right? The incels, they're trying to say. So that's what I mean. If the left start using that same tactic of using government is the biggest terrorist organization on the planet. I think we kind of already established that just by sheer fact that it is a monopoly force of violence, and they do it through the political means to intimidate. I mean, God, if you read the definition of terrorists, it's like, Jesus, this is government. Yeah. You're literally explaining what the hell government is, right? Which is why I imagine why most Western governments don't even want to bring up the terrorist thing, because they probably recognize, oh shit, we're kind of terrorists ourselves, right? We're kind of part of a terrorist organization too, because we use preemptive force or violence towards people that are acting peacefully. We do things, we take from people, we extort money, we do. So to me, it's what it is, and I get it would be a quick, and I get why a lot of the right wingers would support it, because yeah, there's some definitely those fucks in Antifa that definitely need they need some retaliatory force, because they've been bullying and you know, hitting people. Little old fucking lady with a walker in Toronto, right? Intimidating, bullying that lady. So
I was there.
Huh? Oh, were you? Oh
meeting.
Wow, that must have been wild, right? Unfucking
man. Yeah, I had to walk through a column of police. Like, they wouldn't even let me go over to the crowd that was pushing the people around. Like, they had walls of cops that we had to walk through to get into the building, and they're like standing there, you know, like this, not letting anybody go by or whatever. I'm with my buddy, he's black, and he's like walking through, and one of the Antifa guys is like, "What are you doing? Why are you going there? You're a traitor. You're a traitor." My buddy's like, "Are you kidding me? Like, get away from me, buddy." What?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, those guys are, I mean, but like I say, especially for the military folks. Well, even like you were mentioning the police. Here's what I always say. Now, like I say, if you're not on active duty as a military man and all that stuff, and you've gone through your and you understand all this, like I say, nothing against them. And I know, and I recognize there are lots of good guys in Canada, because I know a few of them personally myself. But like I say, even the police. Now, like I say, I'll use the military to a lesser degree, because in Canada, on domestic soil, the military is very, very rarely used for anything. I mean, helping out and, you know, and all that stuff, but rebuilding Sorry?
They have 2 operations they can use for domestic ops, but they never use them, and every time they do them, it's like a public kind of dog and pony show.
Right.
But if they ever enacted it like 100%, then we would see some real stuff go down.
Oh yeah, for sure. And like I say, I'm not too overly concerned, because I actually firmly believe, based on, now, of course, I might be off base with this, but based on the kind of people that I've known, and like I say, I've known quite a few people from the military, and like I say, friends with them. I can't imagine, based on just the ones that I know, let's say I know 20 or 30, I would imagine 90% of them at least wouldn't follow the orders of that shit anyways, right? If they were told to do some pretty nefarious stuff to the Canadian people. But what I've always acknowledged though, what's that?
Depends on how they sell it to them, because
well, that's true. That's true. But what I'm trying to get into, it's the police actually are, even because the police are considered the domestic like force in terms of, you know, keeping the peace. So and like I say, when I hear, especially when I hear a lot of the right wingers that, you know, hate on Trudeau and not a fan of and I'm with them, but it's like a lot of those cops, right, probably voted conservative themselves, but if Trudeau asked them to carry out their orders, he's fucking doing it, right? So that's why to me, it's like, that's why I don't play the left, right, the politics thing, because at the end of the day, even people that should properly understand that Trudeau, like, to me, it's like, you want to arrest the fucking criminals. Well, to me, the police force, they should be lined up at the Parliament building right now, right? It's like, there's the biggest criminals in Canada, right? There's the ones that are fucking economically enslaving entire generations. They're fucking micromanaging, controlling people. Like, they're doing things that have nothing to do with what our countries were founded upon. But like I say, they're not. Why? Because they're wanting to get the paycheck, right? So to me, I don't like to get into the whole thing where you're just blindly supporting the police, because the police are beholden to taking care of the system, the structure. Whoever's in charge, I'm sure personally, and when they're just, you know, buddies talking around the water cooler or in the cruiser, I'm sure they're probably saying Trudeau's a fucking asshole. But if he beckons their call and wants them to enforce these orders or mandate something, maybe vaccines, like, who the hell knows, right? So to me, I want, and especially nice to talk to people like yourself, is to get people who are either come from military or police to understand, like, the most important thing that we can do is put the left-right divide thing aside. And I get how it's very easy done, because we human beings, it's inherent in us to be tribal in some way. That's how we were born and raised. That's how our history, that's how we evolved, to have a particular in-group preference. It protected us from external threats, right? But I think we're wise enough now in the 21st century, and we have so much technology at our disposal. We live in the age of information. I think this is an opportune time, like I say, to help get some of the people up to speed, and people like yourself that are, you know, people that were in positions of, like I say, military, police. I really hope that some of you folks, and like I say, I'm not saying you have to do it publicly, but, you know, talk to your other peeps, be a leader, be a voice, and help some of your fellow, like I say, whether it's, if you got police that you know that are your friends with, or other military, like I say, get them to understand and grasp the importance and the gravity of the situation where it's not politics, because we could end up, you know, the right wingers might claim a victory, let's say, if they put down Antifa, label them as a terrorist group. But like, for someone like myself that don't identify, I still find that I'm always going to be susceptible to being oppressed in some ways. Just the liberals will want to control me. I use the thing, do I want to be run over or ruled over by authoritarian mommy or daddy? It's like, fuck, I don't want either. Like, fuck that. I'm an adult now. How about none? Right? So it's like, to me, like I say, I just want, and because I think we're in such a place today in the age of information, I think we can do so much. And it's hard for people to take this in now, because it's happening in real time. But in 20 years, just like during the Enlightenment era, right? And some of these figureheads from the 17th and 18th century, at the time, they probably had no idea the gravitas or what these things that they were doing, how much power they were going, the ideas that they had, how much power they were going to hold, if only the people that they were talking to, you know, grasped onto them and propagating them throughout their cultures, right? I want to do that today. But like I say, rather than just reiterate and just create another form of government that's basically like the last one, just a little different, little tweaking or tinking around the edges. Like I say, let's use getting people's minds up to speed. And once you get people's minds up to speed and understand that government is inherently corrupt by nature, then people will be innovators and come up with ideas and ways to construct new ways to get out from under this without having to go through violent revolutions. Because that's one thing I don't want to do. Right? I don't want to go through a violent revolution, because a lot of my right-wing friends, a lot of my left-wing friends, a lot of people from both sides will be harmed, you know, into this violent conflict. And a lot of times, a lot of the people that really need to be harmed manage to escape the harm. And a lot of people that shouldn't necessarily have been are the ones that are usually the fodder, right? So to me, to me, let's be wise. And because we have access to so much information today, let's use it to spread this message. And like I say, it's very important in libertarianism. What I will say, and I'll tie this up, and then you can say some stuff, and then we can, like I say, maybe do some questions from, or we can just tie it up entirely. But what I will say is libertarianism, when I first learned about this during Ron Paul's run in 2008 down in the US, he was just someone that just caught me right because he kept saying all these things. God damn, that makes sense. No one else would say it, right? He's the only one on stage. And of course, the media treated him like shit, basically, you know, like, but anyways, once I learned about this libertarian thing, I was like, holy shit. This is if I take my Christian values and principles that was instilled in me as a kid, the good parts of it, right? If I take what Western societies and advanced capitalism, free market capitalism, if you combine all that, libertarianism is so conducive because it is all about, you know, individual freedom and liberty, but you have to have the personal responsibility. That's the whole point, is the responsibility. Because if you just give people freedoms without the fucking flip side of that, which is the responsibility, well, then you end up with, that's where you get those communist kind of fucking setups, right? Where everyone's just looking to offload that, like you were saying earlier. So let someone else do it, right? No, personal responsibility. If you want your freedoms, just like me now, if I want my freedoms, I've come to realize my freedoms rest and rely on informing and educating my fellow Canadians so that they're want to afford me my freedoms, and I'm going to point at them that I'm willing to afford them your freedoms. I don't care what your background is. So like I said, I could bring you on here and I could have an Antifa individual, you know, in an hour later. And to me, it's like, listen, you just respect my freedoms and I'll respect yours. But if you bring violence to me as a libertarian, I won't bring violence to you preemptively. But if you fuck with me, I'm bringing it back. And it's simple as that. And I think that to me, and I think that's how most human beings should probably function is, yes, walk softly, but carry a big stick. If you're not a big person individually, maybe you're a scrawny person. Well, like I say, if you have the Second Amendment and you have, or you take mixed martial arts, or you know, whatever the hell you need to protect yourself. But like I say, we live in the era where like a weak 98-pound weakling or a woman can have equalized power in terms of defend themselves because we have access to lots of tools to do so. So like to me, libertarianism, and in Canada, like I say, 10 years ago, or well, 2008, that'd be 12 years ago, libertarian, I never even heard the word. I was like, holy fuck, has anyone in Canada even heard the word? 12 years later, man, I can't believe how many times I've seen even CBC News use that term a couple of times. And it's like, it's definitely getting more popular. It's definitely taking traction because once people realize and understand what the philosophy of liberty is all about, it's like, well, yeah, duh, right? So I want, like I say, let's spread those ideas. To me, the beautiful thing about libertarianism is it doesn't appeal to just right-wingers or left-wingers. Left-wingers like libertarianism because they love the social freedoms, right? Because they want to have their sexual deviancy, right? Sure. And to me, as much as I'm against that kind of sexual deviancy, it's like, hey, if they're doing their own thing and they're not bothering anyone else, hey, whatever, right?
Whatever,
but the conservatives that want their gun rights and they want, you know, the limited government and less taxation, I'm completely on board. So like I say, libertarianism can appeal and reach across that aisle. And really at the end of the day, that's what we have to do. Because in Canada, we don't want to divide, or if we do, then let's just do it and get it over with so we can all start to live peacefully, just like a household. Could you imagine if you had a mom and dad that hated each other? It's like, fuck, either get a divorce, right? or walk away, do something, because it's not going to work too well if you just live with each other all the time, fucking banging heads, because one of you might kill the other one eventually, right? So that's all I'm saying. Anyways, but I'm going to let you just ramble away there, Thomas, because I know I kind of went on a bit of a tirade there, buddy.
You know, I see Quebec as having a federal party in our politics is a huge threat to our collectiveness as Canadians. They shouldn't have that kind of power in Parliament at all. They should have the same kind of system that the rest of Canada has. I mean, why are they so different? Well, they're distinct society. They want to be different. They want to be, they want to save their heritage. Okay, fine. You know what? So do me. So do you. I'm half Italian, and I go around. I get called a wop all the time. All the time. I don't care. It doesn't bother me because I can take it. I can dish it out. It doesn't bother me at all. But you talk to these guys about it, and they're like, "Oh no, we're special. You're not allowed to say anything about us." How?
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
What makes you so special? Because you're French? It doesn't make any sense to me. And to touch on the Antifa stuff, I only said government because I'm not going to go do
it. Yeah.
Honestly, if the government wants to say right-wingers are terrorists, I'd be like, okay, fine. I don't care. Go ahead. Call me a terrorist. I can show you my dog tags. You want to see them? You want to come and get them? Come and get them. Come on. It doesn't like again, the government's not going to do any of this stuff because they understand. There's people in the government that do understand what we're talking about. They do, because I've talked to them and they know. But
yeah, but do they say it publicly?
They can't, because they have to go along with the party lines. And
yeah, but you see what, but what you're saying is yes, they're to me that's people that they lack the principles and the courage, which are people that that's a sad situation, because like I say, I've put myself in pretty precarious situation. I continue to do every day. I assure you, I've probably garnered a lot. I've probably got lots of people that would love to see me 6 fucking feet under, right? From both sides. But I'm willing to, and I have family, I have people that I care about tremendously. I have people that rely on, but I just there's just something about it. I have to do it. And you know what? If I fucking get taken out for standing for what's right, yeah, there's worse ways to fucking die, to be honest with you. Of course. So I don't, but that's the thing. Like, these people, like, they need to be willing to step up. Like, when I even say that there's no such thing as a good cop, I don't actually fully believe that in my head, but I need to say that, because that to me is like, I'm trying to entice the good ones to actually fucking show their goddamn courage, their balls. Because like I say, I've seen it in the US. I do see it in the US, where you see the odd time where a sheriff or a constable or a corporal or somebody within the police department or sergeant, somebody will put on a YouTube video and say, I will not follow the, and you know what? That's someone that's willing to stand up and for their convictions. And because they actually recognize that, well, the one thing about the U.S., at least, they have the Constitution to back them up, right? Because they're basically, everyone that goes in those, they have to sign an oath to the Constitution. But I don't actually.
We have a new Constitution coming. I know of a group that's writing one, and they've written one, and now they have a draft on their. I'll send you the link so you can take a look at it.
Okay.
It's actually pretty comprehensive and well read. You know, the people that on it had to do a lot of research on multiple different constitutions. They picked from the Americans, the Swedes, the British, ours, Japanese, Australians. Like, they went all over the world and did a bunch of research on all these constitutions. So they wrote that. They got it signed off by an American governor, and I believe an American mayor as well.
Oh, okay.
Not too sure about that, but they definitely got some help from outside of Canada to recognize the Constitution. So it's in, right now, from what I hear from them, is that it's in the final stages of drafts, and you can take a look at all their drafts that they have on their website.
All right. Yeah. If you want, actually just even send it in the Twitter message or whatever, and I'll just add it to the link of this video as well.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, well, that's great. Like I say, because that to me is very important, because I want to at least see, for me to have any trust in, I don't trust the institution per se, but at least to know that there are some people in these institutions or organizations that do have the right ideas and have the Canadians' interests at heart. It is very and vitally important for them. Like, at least someone, for crying out loud, can someone please, you know, show a little bit of fucking resolve and some backbone and do the right thing. They have, like, especially if they're in a respectable position of trust or something. You have no idea how many Canadians are just, you know, yearning and chomping at the bit, hoping that somebody's going to step up to be that person, right? And like I say, when people say, "Oh, what can one person do?" Holy fuck, one person can, like I say, the power of one person can be quite tremendous, especially if it's the right person in the right position with the right kind of influence and has the right kind of stature and reputation. It's very important, like I say, and to me, that's the kind of stuff that you can get a lot of people to rally around and get behind. But until I see that, I still am going to go by the observations that I'm acknowledging here, and in Canada, it's a pretty desolate and quiet place in terms of people who are willing, like people that are from government, let's say, right, that are willing to actually step outside their comfort zone.
I know it's their pension, right? It's their pension. That's what that's the common thread. It's all about money.
But could you imagine, like, I just think, like, it was only just a few generations ago. Like, could you imagine whether it was World War I, World War II, or any other situation? I just can't. No, sorry, that's too. I mean, what people are asking today, like, no one's even asking anyone to sacrifice their lives or to travel to foreign countries. Come on, surely the fuck you can find another way to make an income, right? Like this is the insane thing. Like, anyways, I could ramble on with that, but I definitely, I want somebody, or at least one person or a few people that are part and parcel of these institutions to stand up and do the right thing and then lead by example. Because like I say, there are a lot of Canadians
force them too, right? Like we can keep going at them constantly and force them to respond. We can. We do have the power to do that. We need a lot of people to do it, right? Like we need millions. We don't need a couple thousand. We need millions of people.
Yes. Actually, that's something I'm hoping.
Politicians anymore, man. We gotta put the fire underneath their ass, so to speak, and make them do what we want. They're already there. They're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to dismantle this huge monolithic system. We have to force them to it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. You do definitely get, and like you were saying, I've said this so many times before, because people say, why don't you show up to protests? It's because I listen, when I recognize that there's enough Canadians in Canada that are actually willing to protest, I will definitely do that. But I recognize I've watched it for years, and all you're doing it there today, and I'm not nothing against it, but a lot of the people that put on these, and great job for them. But look at how small in numbers of the people that show up. All you're really doing at that point in time, is putting yourself out there for people to be able for the bad people to fucking target each individual, because they can almost select exactly or pick out who are all the people that are up standing up, and the rest of them are all, you know, not, to me, it's like, can we at least get some people now? This July 1st, Mark Friesen, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him. He's used to be a correctional officer. He ran for PPC out of Saskatchewan. Anyways, he's putting on a protest in Ottawa. Why they waited for July? Well, Canada Day, I kind of get it, makes sense, but I'm thinking that the whole COVID thing might be pretty much unless the second round or whatever comes along. But really, it should happen even before that. But this is going to be a litmus test for me in terms of seeing just how, if the meter is moved anywhere in Canada in terms of more and more Canadians willing to stand in defiance of this kind of stuff. But I'm not holding out a whole lot of hope, to be honest with you, man, because I haven't seen it as of yet. And I don't know. Like you say,
I'm going to go.
Seems like a lot of put your head down, go to work, do your thing. Like you were saying, hope for the best, right? And, now, me, I would probably have continued to do the same thing if it wasn't for the fact my biggest incentive, obviously, is my sons, right? Having two sons was a huge incentive for me, because it's not just for me. If it was just for me that I was concerned with, I'd be like, I could probably fucking figure shit out enough, right? That I'll be okay. I'll make it out if I just mind my P's and Q's and kind of do my thing, right? But because I realized that, well, not just my kids, but other people's kids, like my friends' kids, like it's the future generations. And I think, yeah, okay, I got to enjoy quite a few freedoms, not as many as I would like, but a lot of them are baked in the cake by sheer fact that there were generations prior to me that were willing to stand up and do the right thing when it was needed and necessary. And I feel, at the very least, I've got to do something, right? Whether it's picking up arms or just using my voice, to me, I've got to do something to say that, you know, when I take my final breath, I want to be able to say I did as much as I thought I could possibly do to expand on those kind of liberties that I've been afforded from people or generations of the past. And if I don't at least do that, you know, to the best of my ability, I will feel like it's somewhat of a failure, not just for myself and my future self for the rest of the life I've got to live, but for my kids, my grandkids, and every other successive generation that's going to come after us, right?
Well, yeah, it's I'm looking to the future as well. I got two boys and two daughters, so I mean, the future doesn't look too good politically for them. I mean, it doesn't even look good, you know, even just like going out to get a job or buy a house or, you know, buy a car or be able to travel the world or anything like that. I mean, it's all going to cost way too much money. And then, I mean, who knows? They might even shut down international travel for as long as they want, because they can do that. They have the power. They have all this authority and whatever. So, like, weird stuff can happen. And we haven't even hit the weird stuff yet.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you could. Well, like, to me, Well, that's the thing. This wasn't even truly a full-on economic crash for a lot of people because they got the CERB. What was it, 7.5 million people that applied or whatever. But yeah, if you actually went through a true protracted economic, and like I say, eventually it's going to have to take place because even though with fiat currencies, I know central planners have a tremendous amount of tools in their belt. So I know that they can do, when people say all the time, oh, the market's going to crash, or it's like, dude, you could say that stuff, like I say, when you could measure things like when the gold used to restrict what governments could do, right? But nowadays it's so free floating, and because it's so coordinated, that's the other thing. Historically, let's say Canada went on a money printing spree. Well, the dollar would have been totally, it wouldn't even be worth the fucking money that, or the paper or the plastic it's printed on, I should say, these days, right?
Let me tell you a secret about.
But the reason why it maintains its value is because whether it's the G8 or the G20 countries, they get together and they all devalue their currency. Now, at the beginning of the financial crisis, they kind of did it in unison. But to make it look less coordinated, they do it in like U.S. might do it at this point in time, and then maybe Canada will do it later. But they all follow suit so that they're devaluing their currencies roughly in line with each other, which keeps them somewhat, on par. Because if one country, seeing theirs devalued, well, then they'd be like, well, the people would be like, well, I'm not using Canadian dollars. I'm going to fucking go use American dollars, right? Because my money's not worth shit. So they all do it like in a coordinated manner. So when people say, now the economic, it's going to happen this time, it's like, no, you don't realize that they have a tremendous amount of power to keep that money printing going. And because inflation happens so gradual, like, it's like death by 1,000 cuts, or that boiling frog. Like, you're sitting there like, yeah, things are getting more expensive, but it's not like it gets expensive like overnight. It takes like, but at 50 years, even at 2% inflation, well, there's 100%, right? That's a lot of purchasing power. That's basically a halving, right, of what your purchasing power was if it's doubled in terms of 100% or whatever. But without having ability to get out from underneath these, which the only people that right now have the option to do so are people that are holders of cryptocurrencies, but there's still only limited corporations or businesses that will even use blockchain technologies or cryptocurrencies to buy things. So we still have work to do. There's still people that are coming up with ways. There was a company that I interviewed. Actually, they interviewed me. I was on their show, AGX. They're actually creating a cryptocurrency, which I think it's the best idea so far, because I don't trust something that's just on the internet, that's in the digital sphere. Because what if I need that tangibly at some point in time, right? I need it. But there are people that are coming up with this one in particular is silver-backed cryptocurrency. So you can, when you're in the digital sphere online, you can just use your digital currency, but you can automatically convert it into silver. And once you've converted into silver, yeah. And your silver obviously will retain its value. Sorry. Go ahead.
The big problem with cryptocurrency is that if it's held in like a central spot, that central spot isn't unhackable.
No. They can't. What it is they can hack the infrastructure, like that, like Mount Gox, that exchange, or the one that was an online platform to store your currency. So how the blockchain would work is they can get access to the blockchain, but they can't break the encryption to actually steal, like to go into. So imagine a lockbox in a safe, right?
Yeah, they can't break into your cryptocurrency wallet, but they can break to the exchange to steal everyone's money. Yeah,
100%. So either way, you're still getting shafted that way. But for me, if I had cryptocurrencies, well, I have a little bit right now because I get a couple people that donate Bitcoin. Very tiny, like fractions of it, but it's funny because that little bit can actually, add up a little bit. But anyways, those things is, if you're going to carry that, like, I don't have enough to worry about. It's only a couple $100 that I got. If I had any storage of it, what you do is you put that on a removable USB drive. Don't keep that. To me, that's the same. Like if I had cash. I don't even keep my cash in the bank. If I have any amount of money, like banks, I don't even give the banks my money. If I had any kind of money, I'd keep it, because the banks aren't giving you any interest rate of return anyways. Find another way to invest.
Right here.
Yeah, exactly. So, and actually, you're actually losing money if you leave it in the bank, because the inflation is higher than your interest, any interest you'll accrue. You're actually losing the value. Well, even if you stick it under your mattress now, because it's constantly being devalued through the money printing, you're losing the value, which is why, to me, converting it to something that actually tangibly holds its value, which silver does, which gold does, whatever commodities. There's lots. Hey, another thing. Hey, people that like to buy, yeah, beautiful. Exactly. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about right there. Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing. And that's the kind of stuff that's going to retain the value, right? So there's all kinds of ways that we can get out from around it, but we're not going to, like you were saying, we're not going to get rid of the system anytime soon. It's not, but at the very least, before that can ever take place, what I try to do is at least keep people up to speed so that we can do it in an intellectual manner and where we can change and pivot the system without going through some protracted war or civil conflict, because I don't want to go through that. I don't want my kids to go through it. I don't think it's needed or necessary. I think there's all the tools that were required to change, make this fundamental shift. I think it's already here. It's just a matter of getting people up to speed and getting the right people in position.
Yeah, exactly. We gotta, like I said before, we gotta push these politicians.
Enjoying our conversation, like I say. So if you want, like I say, we can just tie it up because we are at about an hour and 44 minutes. Or did you want me to go maybe check a few of the comments, or what are you thinking there, buddy? It's up to you.
Yeah, sure. Check some of the comments, see if they got any questions.
Because like I say, I know I ramble on a lot, so I understand if people don't want to. I like to tell people I could put Joe Rogan fucking he could do 3 hours, I'd do fucking 6. So I'm not kidding either. I'm serious. I could probably do it, no problem. Hey, what's going on, little Miss So It All? Yeah, she showed up. Very cool. She's pretty awesome. Okay, Zach, let them try defund the police. Let's see what happens. I feel like Zach's a big fan, is he? As Zach's in there. Well, that's the thing, though. Actually, these are comments way back. Let me go way. That's actually the very at the very oldest part of the stream. That's way earlier on. So let me get way down to the bottom here. Mitch Burgess, outside of digital sphere, some new terms for me. Oh, well, yeah, Mitch Burgess, all I'm saying digital sphere is basically online, right? So it's the ones and zeros space, like not tangible. Because, if your electricity goes down, obviously, if it's on anything that's, stored online, which is in the digital realm or digital sphere, however you want to phrase it, is, you don't have access to nothing, right? So basically, that's basically.
Let me just put this in your ear too.
Sure, go for it.
Here's another problem with digital currency is that
trust that beard.
The internet is owned. The devil in the advocate. Yeah.
Anyways, go ahead.
The internet is owned by the U.S. military. It's owned by DARPA. So any kind of electronic transfer across the whole world, unless they have their own internet, can be confiscated by the U.S. military.
Yeah, well, because they have ways to get it at the beginning, but because there's end-to-end encryption and because you can use VPN, there are ways. And with the Onion Router network, there are other ways. Are you familiar with the Onion Router, Tor?
No. I'm only familiar with the NSA and their apparatus.
Oh yeah. No, I get what you're saying, but Tor it's called the Onion Router. So short, TOR is the the abbreviated form of it, but it's the Onion Router. And a lot of people use it, for people in foreign countries that are under oppressive or repressive regimes and stuff. But basically, it's multiple layers. So it's not like a typical VPN, because VPNs actually, you can get around it like government infrastructure and NSA and such. They just look where you're actually starting, like where the actual starting point is. And they're like, well, I know where the hell you are, right? You can send but the Onion Router, it does it in such a way that actually and Edward Snowden actually acknowledged it, because until I heard it from his mouth, I was like, I don't know, maybe the government can still get around it. But now, and they might be able to now, because this is revelations that came back, as you recognize, it's been years ago since the Edward Snowden revelations. So they might have found a way to circumvent and get around the Onion Router. But the Onion Router was actually the only thing that was actually safe, because not just in encryption, but because the fact, and that's why they call it Onion. An onion is because it has many, many, many layers to make it so that it can trick anyone that's trying to snoop or spy or surveil you. It can trick them in some way. But one thing I will say about that, though, and here's the beautiful thing, you're absolutely right that most of our current infrastructure in terms of the internet is very easily manipulated or encroached. Our freedoms and our liberties online can be encroached by governments and state actors from all over the country or all over the world. I get that. But what's another beautiful thing now is Elon Musk with Starlink. This is another option here once again. Eventually, they're going to put 42,000. That's the end goal. But for now, they're going to just do it. But all that infrastructure that Elon Musk is building up there, it's all satellite based. And the only other ground based infrastructure in the makeup will be what you have in your house. And it'll be basically something he said about the size of like a football, not very big. Turn it on and point it towards the sky. Sorry?
I don't trust it at all. The NSA, they hacked into the Iranian nuclear program.
Oh yeah, I know. Stuxnet
destroyed it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't get around this. They'll figure out a way. If
they
for
want
sure. Got the right people in power and they want to push on a certain individual, they will get you.
Yeah, but here's one way I would, but I agree with you 100%, but here's the only way I would push back against that. And how I know it to be true, not in this particular example, because like I say, I have no insider knowledge to say or to draw from, but think about this. The kind of people that work for government, and yeah, they got a lot of smart dudes, a lot of great hackers, but think about it. Who are the best hackers that have ever existed? They don't work for government. Right. Yep. Usually those guys those are the guys that are the rebels, the outcasts, and tell you the truth. And they have a completely different incentive structure as well. Right. So as much as the ones and think about it, the government guy, they're just trying to do their job. Right. And put in their work for whatever they're getting paid by the government. But like I say, that guy that sits all day, every day in his mother's fucking basement, right? And he learned to code when he was like 8, right? It's like, that's a dude. Like, yes, the guy in the government is definitely going to be really good, and he's got tons of infrastructure. But like I still have a tremendous amount of faith for those rare individuals that have just amazingly adept minds and geniuses that come up with ways all the time to circumvent and get around some of these government imposed mandates or restrictions on our freedoms. And you know how many times or how many ways growing up, even just little things in the real world growing up, like all the different ways that people think of the creative ways to get out from underneath, like government says you can't do this or that, right? It's like, there's just so many innovative people.
Yeah.
But in terms of, sorry?
Edward Snowden, he was just some guy in college, and CIA picked him up. They're like, oh, this guy's brilliant. Let's bring him in, pull him into our program and train him. Let's see what he can do.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, and that does happen for sure. The state definitely captures some of those figureheads. But like I say, but the minute the government, see, that's the thing. So let's say the government comes up with a way to break encryption, or let's say even when Apple, like they wanted Tim Cook to give them a backdoor encryption, you can rest assured that there's some guy out there thinking, oh, let me see if I can't figure that out myself. Like like I say, so every time, and there's going to be incentive, even when the government, like think about even the perfect example is the radar detector. Right? Cops had remember back in the day, right? Cops had they catch you on radar, but then some guy invented the radar detector, right? Well, then the cops or someone create this thing. Well, we're going to create a radar detector, right? So it's like, oh, we got you now, fucker, right? But then they come up with like all these different radar detectors that instead of the Y band or this band, or they just use. So there's, like I say, it's always going to be that way. There's always going to be a race where the authoritarians are going to try to one up, right? But like I say, it's the one that's fighting for their freedom. Always has the incentive. Now, as long as you have like intellectual capacities and human beings, like there's smart guys right out there. So as long as they're human beings that have at least that fundamental intellectual capacity, combine that with the incentive, I want my freedoms. And then, like I say, compare them with someone that's just doing their job for government. The one with the incentive for their freedoms, they're going to fight much harder, probably put in a lot more work, a lot more effort to do so. So I still have enough faith in, like I say, I don't necessarily trust the infrastructure, just like with the internet. I don't trust government to protect me. I trust private individuals that come up with all these end-to-end encryption or all these like blockchain decentralized. I rely on these individuals. Or myself, if I was a coder, I'd be doing that myself, right? I'd be like, oh, you got a way to fucking get around? Oh, hey, let me figure that out here, right? So,
who do you think Satoshi Nakamoto is?
That's the guy. Well, he's the guy that they originally coined that invented Bitcoin, or who
is he?
But that's the thing. No one actually knows who he is, or if it isn't even a he. It could be a state. It could be right? Nobody knows that, and like. I'm completely, but just like when you were talking about the internet, even if, like you said, let's say the government, and they do have a lot of control over the internet, like the government controls the roadways too, right? But I can go out in this roadway tomorrow and they might say I'm not allowed to do something there, but I can do it because there's not anyone there 24 hours a day, 7 days. So just like the internet. They might own the infrastructure, but if you find ways to navigate on the internet because someone or you yourself have created some kind of infrastructure yourself or some kind of app or some methodology where you can circumvent or get around government restrictions or that, then like I say, that'll be another way. But at least with having Elon Musk, and he's just one, like that's just one. Starlink is just one, but because I think that one is going to be so more susceptible for for most of us to use, because like I say, they're going to use 42 low Earth orbiting satellites, 42,000 of them, so that you're not going to have a tremendous amount of latency, because a lot of the ones now, they're way the hell out there. These are going to be low Earth orbiting. They're only going to stay up about 5 years, and then they're going to fall out into Earth. They're quite inexpensive, so they're easily to replace and keep putting them up there. And like I say, all you need at the end of the day as the end consumer is that Elon Musk basically said, you just point it to the sky and turn it, like plug it in. That's two only. But then you got was it the Amazon guy, Jeff Bezos? What's the one he's called? OneWeb. He's coming up with a whole thing called OneWeb. Oh, and there's another private company that's trying another one too. So there's 3 companies just in the US alone, and who knows what other companies around the world are doing the same thing. So there's 3. Yeah, there's another one. I can't think of the name of it right now, but there's another third company. It's talked about a lot less, which is why I can't think of it off the top of my mind. But yeah, there's, like I say, so at least, and when there's competition, even if these guys have the wrong intentions, competition always, at the very least, gives you options, right? And there's going to be an incentive structure built in that they're going to want to retain their customer base. That's the one thing about the private market that I love. Even if the guy's evil as fuck, right? Even if Elon Musk somehow turned out, oh, look, he has horns after all, right? The incentive for him to be able to keep a customer base means that he's going to have to appeal to what the customers demand. And today, what a lot of customers are demanding is to have, security and protection from invasion, whether it's government actors, malicious actors, or just hackers, right? So there's going to be enough incentive for these guys to come up with ways to protect our security online stuff. But I still, like I say, I still am not one of those people that's just going to trust. I'm always going to be proactive myself. Like even right now, I have all kinds of extra applications and resources on my computer to help me in some way as well, in terms of protected from things, right? So like I say, I don't trust anybody in particular, other than I do know, the one thing I do know is in a private setting, in a market-driven competition type setting where they don't have a monopoly to force us to use their service, there's at least an incentive that I'm going to have much more trust in them than, like, let's say government, which basically can put the gun to my head and say, you have to use this, right? Because there's no real incentive for the guy that can put the gun to my head, metaphorically, of course, to say that I have to use their service. There's not really much of an incentive for them to provide what I require, right? But the one that needs me to enter into the contract voluntarily with their business, they kind of do have to appeal to me, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of innovation over the next few years that people didn't even think was possible. Like we're just going to be continually doubling and doubling and doubling our information.
Yeah.
And the way that we could be doing things. I mean, humans haven't even reached peak potential yet. We're not even close. We're barely out of the box.
Yeah, I'm just reading this Devil in the Advocate. Do you guys think anything is messed up about how much the mainstream media outlets create as much of a frenzy as possible? Yeah, of course.
Well, I think it's a big problem.
Yeah. You want to go deal with that one, Thomas? Go ahead, man.
Look, the media is doing something that we don't know what their end goal is. We just know that they're spewing a whole bunch of hate and trying to trap people into this racism crap. Pit people against each other for what?
Yeah.
Because you're a different skin color. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Anybody with a logical brain knows that, okay, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Why are we still doing this? We don't need to. So they're pulling our attention away from something that's really important that's going on. And we're missing.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, like you say, and there's definitely some areas that I haven't even talked to. Actually, my son, I'll just do a little teaser here, I guess, for the folks. And like I say, I'll finish this up and then we can go back to our regular evening there. But my son has been kind of, and we've done some podcasts, both of us. He's actually really great. He's 28. He's totally on board in terms of like, thinking about these things critically and stuff. And he's saying the same thing. And it's like, I won't do it on this channel because this channel is set up and it's for adult content and it's a monetized channel, and YouTube would totally fuck me but we have another one. It's called Liberty Hunter Podcast. And on that channel, we're going to be covering some of the topics that I usually don't normally talk about, because I know you got the overlookers that are watching everything you do, and they're fucking goddamn, and they're constantly like, they suppress my channel already as it is, and even demonetize a lot of my videos. It's difficult because they have all these questions you have to answer now. Is there anything related to hate? Is there anything? It's like, there's just, but of course the terms or the way they describe is like anything basically would fit the description. So basically they can selectively fuck with anybody nowadays. But
oh yeah,
there's definitely stuff that's taking place now in the economic realm, and even some pretty nasty stuff in terms of like human behavior and crazy nefarious shit, children, and like the whole Epstein, like there's some crazy stuff. And like I say, these are things that need to be discussed and talked about, because it does seem that, and I find it so weird when incidents like this take place. And I'm not, like I say, I'm not into the conspiracy theory shit, and I don't really care, to be honest with you, because I know humans have, like I say, just get humans to properly incentivized, and you've basically fixed most of your problems. But when it comes to that, like I say, that stuff, actually, I kind of lost my train of thought there. Anyways, go ahead. What were you saying there, Thomas? I totally fucking lost my train.
Well, I mean, there's so many bad things that are coming to light that we don't really understand what they fully mean yet.
Yeah. Oh, I remember what I was going to say there.
Sorry. Having a hard time dealing. Like we're just having a hard time just dealing with this. Like, and then all of a sudden, everyone's a virologist. I just,
yeah.
Government is always going to be against you if the wrong people are in the right spot.
Yeah.
This is what I keep saying, that we got to keep forcing these people to stay on cue. Like now, look what they're doing. They're just doing whatever they want.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just doing whatever they want. We can't even control them.
No, it's unbelievable. One thing I will say, and like I say, and then we'll tie this up, because like I say, I've been saying that but the one thing, and I mentioned this in a couple streams too, is that, like, especially for the right leaning people in this country, you might have to start learning to rip a fucking page out of the Antifa playbook or something, or the left wingers, because it's the left wingers. And I'm not like, I get it here, but here's the problem that I think people on the right have is, and I would even say, even myself, it's kind of like I'm talking to myself in that way, even though I don't necessarily identify on right. But as we constantly try to hold ourselves to some, vastly superior ethical standard, the people that don't are running rickshot over, the people that are trying to do the right thing all the time, all day, every day. It's like, that's how you get taken advantage of. That's how you get railroaded over. So what I would say to the right wingers is, look, the protests, right? Or I mean, the lockdowns, a lot of people were locked down, not allowed to go to their jobs, fucking, given fines for the stupidest shit, taking their kids out to the fucking park, right? Even people that were just by themselves being given tickets, $1,000, $880. But what happened? And I mean, I feel bad for the black guy, and I definitely agree that was fucking ridiculous what happened in the US. But look, it took the left. Where's the lockdown? The left has shown clearly how you send a message to the ruling class. Like, I'm not fucking doing anything you tell me. We decided to show up in huge numbers to protest and fuck the social distancing and be damned with you telling us we're locked in, right? And look at it, sent the fucking ruling class with their tail tucked between their legs, basically out there virtue signaling, turn themselves into pretzels, trying to come up with excuses why it's okay to allow thousands and thousands of people to get together to fucking protest a riot. Meanwhile, I can't go to my fucking grandma's funeral. Where the fuck does that make sense? Doesn't make any. But like I said, the left sent a very clear message that they won't take the shit. That's what I want to see the people on the right start to fucking stand up and, and I get it, even myself. Like, yeah, you can bitch on the internet all day long, but at some fucking point in time, we got to goddamn well get together, do what the hell. Like I say, start showing that we can be a force to be reckoned with too. And like I say, not saying I'm right wing, but once again, I'm with anybody that's willing to fucking hold government to account and fucking get these cocksuckers that are the authoritarians that are trying to control, dictate, and micromanage our lives. Can we at least send them a message The left wingers, chances are the problem with the lefty doing it is all the Trudeau liberals will do is make some kind of negotiation or pact where, let's all come together. It's like, which means once they've finalized their grievances, well, now they're going to be an even stronger show of force against an even smaller group of right wingers. So to me, it's like right wingers need to get their tactics, their strategies, and their fucking brains going on and start doing shit in this country, because I'm not seeing much happening. And that's the thing that drives me nuts, because I know how much strength, resolve, and intelligence that a lot of people on that right side of the spectrum can bring to the table. And like I say, because a lot of them are people that are typically very competent, strong, resilient, self-sufficient individuals. It's like, these are the people that should be leading today, but yet they're not, which, once again, let me just hang my head in shame here. It's for that fact, because it does disappoint me too.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can see it with Alberta, right? Like how all those oil tycoons and that, they just packed up all their shit and left. They just said, forget all these stupid policies. We don't want to deal with them anymore. We want to make our money and live our lives. We don't care about what they think.
That must be your wife, is it?
Yeah.
You're good. I'm watching and the kids are here. Right on. That's awesome. Well, that's great. Actually, your wife's cool then. She watches your stuff. Like my wife does too, actually, but a lot of the time she's not right here. But she's very low key. I don't know about your wife, but she don't even like to be like on camera for 2 seconds, man. Tell you the truth, I didn't really care for it much myself years ago. It took me quite a prod, and it took my youngest son actually to say, listen, Dad, you always tell us you got to step up, right, when you want to overcome some of your fears or any obstacles. And I was like, you know what? He's absolutely, no, but he's right. He called me out on it, because like, no, I don't want to start a YouTube channel. Are you crazy? I don't even like to get my picture taken. But I said, you know what? He's absolutely right. He called me out, and I did it. And my first few videos, man, talk about uncomfortable and fucking awkward silence. And it was like, I had to start somewhere, right? But now, like, years later, I've grown into it a little bit, and I'm glad that I did choose to do it, because I met some really great Canadians. And that's one thing people say, oh, well, you shouldn't have never called your channel Canadian Libertarian, because, man, if you didn't use the Canadian, there's so many libertarians in America, you'd have way more followers. But it's like, America, they're good. America can take care of their business. I'm a Canadian man. I'm here. I want to take care. I want to talk to my fellow peeps in Canada. Not worried about the Americans. They're going to do their thing. But that's why I chose the Canadian Libertarian. Well, I am Canadian, and I care about this country. I'm not like a super patriot in terms of that shit, but what it is I love the ideas of what Canada represents. I love the kind of people that usually comprise of what a typical Canadian is, because, the typical polite, respectful, courteous, and still pretty strong and resilient too, because that's the thing I will say about Canada, as being the northern country rather than living in the southern nice warm climates and stuff, is live in this fucking country, depending on certain parts of it too, like it's not for the weak, right? It's not for the light of heart or the weak in some places. Like where I grew up in rural New Brunswick, it's not some place for your typical little hipster doofus, right?
No,
there's my wife there, actually. But anyways, so I'll probably end up having to. Here, let me just wonder if I pull this down, it'll shut it off. But I'm gonna have to give her a call back. But anyways, Thomas, I really appreciate this conversation, and I'm grateful that your wife and it looks like maybe a few of your friends showed up too, because some of the commenters actually I'm not familiar with. Are they maybe a couple of your friends? Are they?
No, I sent it out to a bunch of people.
Awesome. Well, like I say, I really appreciate it. And I know I kind of did. I tend to do that. I talk a lot. I kind of understand that. But I always wait for, it's like, well, listen, just interject, man. I'll shut up the minute you start to talk.
Oh, yeah. I don't like interrupting people. I like when people just kind of talk and let go. I want to see what they have to say.
Oh, it's 10 o'clock. Oh, no wonder she's coming home. Anyways, but I get what you're saying, man. But like when it comes to me, actually, I should have preempted that before we even went live. I should have said, I'm the kind of guy, I'm pretty strong, forthright character, but if you have something to say, by all means, cut me. Like, it's not like I would get upset with you or anything. It's just that I tend to, be the guy who talk. And even in my family, I'm the one that's the talker, right? So it's like, that's just me. But yeah, always feel completely comfortable. And like I say, this was a great conversation. If you ever want to talk to me again, definitely reach out to me anytime. We could talk about anything. And I don't even give a shit if we completely disagree, because as long as I know, now there's my son. They both want me. Okay, just one sec there. God damn it. Yes. I'm live streaming. So just so you know. Yeah. Okay, just let her know that I'm streaming. So you're okay. So she's just taking you home, and then okay. Well, yeah, I'll just see her when she gets home then. Okay. Okay, later. Yeah, sorry about that, man. But anyways, like I say, I really enjoyed talking to people like yourself, and anything you want to talk, if it's even if you disagree, at the end of the day, as long as I know, and because you're willing to come on and engage like this, I tell you, obviously, you're obviously just someone that wants to engage the conversation. Doesn't matter if we disagree or not. If you have the right intentions and you just want to, put forth your premise, and not, like I say, I'll talk about anything. There's no topic, there's no subject that I'll take off the table in terms of that. So if you ever want, like I say, have any conversation about anything, let me know and we'll do so, because I do want to reach out to more and more Canadians, and especially folks like yourself that do have a military background, because I know that there are a lot of you guys that are going to probably have to be, leading at some point in time in terms of talking to some of the younger people that go into some of these positions, and give them some of that good advice that I'm sure maybe your dad or someone else in your life might have given you, and kind of give people a better grasp understanding, I think, of what it is to defend, Canadian people, but, traveling to foreign countries all the time and stirring hornets nests up and maybe not supporting that stuff might not be the greatest idea, because I actually think a lot of that stuff actually brings back a lot more harm. And actually, one of the guys that actually used to, one of the very first guys I remember talking about that a lot was what was his name? Adam Kokesh, I believe, in the US. And he was a Iraq military vet too. And yeah, it's like, it really is. And Ron Paul talked about this too, is, stirring up the hornet's nest in the Middle East. There's enough issues over in those fucking places. And by doing so, you're constantly bringing more and more pain, and more conflict and more deaths, more devastation, more destruction. Listen, if those places don't want your infrastructure, don't want your innovation, your ideas, and the capitalist system that the West has brought, then let them fucking, pound sand, do whatever. But there's no need to have to invade them. And in terms of like domestic, in terms of police forces, is police got to get to the idea that what you're here to do is to serve the public, and because that is no longer really talked about anymore. It's to serve the public, and not in a way as just bowing before them. What you're doing is you're just basically to keep the peace. That's what the purpose of your job is, to keep the peace. So the escalations, the racial targeting, the following the orders of authoritarian politicians that tell you to do harm to people that have been peaceful and haven't caused harm themselves. You get the people in these positions to, like I say, and it starts at the bottom and holding their sergeant to account, and then that sergeant holding their superior to account. It has to start somewhere, folks. And I know it's difficult. It's tremendously difficult, because like Thomas was saying, we all got to get through this life. We all got to have a paycheck of some sort. We got to pay for the roof overhead. But we got to also prioritize what kind of a country do we all want to live in? What kind of country do we want to leave for our kids and our grandkids? I want one where they feel that they're actually not just safe and secure, but they have the kind of liberties that, like I say, we used to have. And like I say, when I was growing up, I had a lot more freedoms, in my teens, by teen years. That it's as I'm getting older, my freedoms and liberties are being eroded constantly. And I don't want it. Should be going the other way. We should be expanding on those, not eroding them. But anyways, go ahead, Thomas, tie it up, man.
So, like with the cops and that, like we can play good and all that with the cops or whatever, right? But they're just doing what they think they have to do. I mean, you have to convince them that they don't need to do something most of the time, because they're like, well, no, I have to do this because of this. It's like, well, can we talk about it for a sec here? Like, you don't really need to charge me with this. Like, you can do this or you can do that. I mean, they will work with you. I've had full out yelling arguments with a cop on the side of the road trying to give me a ticket. Like, no, you can't give me a ticket for that. You just can't. And they eventually came to, and they They brought the level down. Like, this is the huge thing, right? It's like a lot of cops, they come out and they come out hard. They try and push you and push and push. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to back down. And that's what everyone else needs to do too. You do not back down. Never cower. As soon as that authoritarian boot comes down, that's when you step up.
Yeah. Yeah, of course, you got to be wise about it, though. Yeah. It depends on
with your voice and like using your gesture.
Yes.
I'm not go and shoot somebody. That's crazy.
No. Oh no. Nobody was alluding to that or anything. But like I say, it's just, you know, you can get if you even so much as raise your voice with some officers, you can get that contempt of cop thing where they don't think you're respecting their authority, right? So that can be. But like I say, anyways, like I say. Finish it up there, because my thing is, if you know anyone like you yourself, Thomas, or anyone that's in the stream, like if you know another police officer or anyone in the military that would like to have a conversation with me, like I say, I'm constantly trying to reach out to people, because I look for the good in people, and I want to be the one that brings out this kind of stuff rather than always. I mean, you can flick through YouTube all day and find nothing but nonstop discouraging bullshit. But I want to, you know, bring some positivity to the table and get people actually actively engaged and have these conversations. And people from, like I say, I would like to have someday me, you know, a right-wing conservative, an Antifa, First Nations person. Let's all just talk, because really at the end of the day, that's like that to me is the kind of spectacle that Canadians should see, is not just a bunch of idiots in 5-second or 15-second sound bites on CBC News where they're basically scripted narratives. I mean, just regular people like you and I sitting down and talk about these kind of very important fundamental ideas, because that's the kind of grassroots stuff that gets people inspired and wishing that, hey, they're doing it. That means I can do it too, right? Because if you're always looking at someone that's on some grassy knoll in the Parliament Hill or something wearing a $5,000 pinstripe suit, they're not personally associating with that, but they can associate with you, Thomas, and then they can associate with me. And like I say, I think our voices matter more than 10 or 20 of these very high-paid media pundits.
Oh yeah, I mean, most of them are they're just plugs. That's what they are.
Yeah.
I mean, they just do their job, and they have their talking points. They follow the script or whatever. But, you know, I don't even think half of them really even believe half the crap they say. And they probably just say it on their TV just to go along with the corporate banner, and then just say, hey, see you later. I'm going to the cottage. Bye.
Yeah, no doubt. Anyways, like I say, we'll tie this up then, Thomas. Like I say, I really appreciate you come on, having this conversation with me. And like I say, if you ever want to do it again, just reach out to me now that we're contacted on Twitter. You can always send me a message. Just give me, you know, usually a day or two, because I do have quite a few of these conversations. And it's not just on Facebook and Twitter. I'm on Minds, Gabs, ThinkSpot, Locals. So there's lots of people that I actively engage with conversations. But I'm always looking for, like I say, I'm always looking for people from all different backgrounds and stripes, whether it's political or philosophical. If you're a philosophical person, religious person, because to me, it's getting down to the fact what I think these conversations show is even people that come from totally different backgrounds or histories or anything. It just shows that all you really have to do at the end of the day is actually sit down and have a conversation, and you can usually work out and iron out a lot of those issues that you originally thought that you'd never be able to get over. Like how many times you see on the, you know, Twitter exchange where they give up on the conversation entirely. But no wonder, you're trying to communicate a few hundred fucking characters at a time, first of all, and it's in text form, which means you know, you might think the guy's saying it angrily, maybe he's being, you know, friendly, but you can't tell because there's no way to you know, get the actual context of what they're trying to say. So conversation like this can definitely help us. And every time I've had them, whether it's someone on the right or the left or independent, libertarian, anarchist, every time I've had them, what originally started out was we have fundamental disagreements. Really, all we've had to do is work out, you know, make sure we're clear in what we're talking about. The language is clear. Make sure we're defining the terms of the words we're using. And usually once we've done that, I've found every conversation I've had, it always works out the same way, where I basically end up at the end of the conversation having a great interaction and walking away with, even though we still haven't agreed with each other, we recognize, well, you do you and I'll do me, as long as we treat each other with dignity and respect and we don't use preemptive force or violence, coercion, or theft towards each other, we'll be just fine. And I think, like I say, these are the kind of things that people want to see. You know, they can fill their cup all day long with all that bullshit political divisiveness and hatred and identity politics. But then it's nice for them to be able to come here and get some good common sense and just some just salt of the earth people like us, just talk about things that are important and how we can better respect each other as individuals.
So the last thing I want to say is I'll be at Ottawa July 1st.
Oh, you will? Right on. Awesome. Actually, you know what? If my son ends up, because he's up in Ontario, and if I could kill two birds with one stone and go visit him and him decide that he wants to go, I think I would like to do that myself. So I shouldn't let it out right here, right? but there's definitely a possibility. And like I said, I've been paying attention with Mark's post, seeing how popular, like how many people seem to be, because like it is something that I would like to do. And maybe like I say, set up my smartphone and do some on the ground kind of
numbers up, because I saw a couple of posts already on a couple of different pages on Facebook and Twitter, and that people were saying that, oh, well, why am I going to go there if, like, there isn't going to be enough people going? It's like, guys, we all need to go.
Yeah.
You don't understand. We all need to go. It's not about, if there's enough people. Like,
yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. And you know what? That's where I have to, not just talk about it, but do myself. Right. So I've been saying that same kind of thing too, is like, yeah, the protest in Canada, but that's based on the context. But once again, if I'm always sitting on the sidelines saying, well, I'm not going to, then I'm not actually leading by example in that manner either. So I got to step up the plate and do that as well. So like you say, I agree. And I think maybe this July 1st, and because it is Canada Day, might very well be conducive with something that I think I would like to do and be dip my toes in the water of the whole protest thing. I protest every day. I just don't do it in front of the parliament, right? But it would be nice to do that, and then the optics of it, I think, would be good too, because then people would see that, yeah, I'm actually out there on the ground as well, right? So yeah, good idea. And if I do, Thomas, I'll definitely want to make sure and go and shake your hand and maybe have a chat or two with you and your friends and see what's up, because I definitely want to reach out to more and more of the people who are actively engaged in doing these things. What's up? What's that? The Republic of Canada. Right on. Nice. Yeah.
I'll be handing out those cards.
Awesome, Tom.
That idea.
Right on. Right on. Yeah. No, that would definitely be a step up at the very least, right? To have a Republic of Canada, that would be pretty wild, actually. But anyways, like I say, Thomas, I'm going to let you go because my wife's on her way home there now, and I know your wife, she's been patiently waiting too, I assume. But anyways, like I say, really appreciate you being here on the show, and I'll, like I say, reach out to me anytime. We'll have a conversation. And thanks for all you folks that showed up to the stream, and the ones that stayed for this long. You're troopers, I gotta say. So thank you very much. Have yourself a great one. This is Canadian Libertarian. Oh, actually, I'll say it after we get off. Don't get off till when I'm done. I'll talk to you for one just sec. So this is Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty. Just one sec there, man. Okay.